Good morning to all and welcome to Baiju's exam prep. So I am Basavaraj. So we'll be continuing the ecology and environment which we have started. Hope I am audible as well as visible to you all. Right? Please confirm that I am audible as well as visible to you all. Done. Done. Okay. So we initiated something regarding pollution. So we completed a good number of topics, starting with concept of ecology, then biodiversity of India, biodiversity concepts, all the good concepts we completed. Then we made an effort in understanding ozone and ozone depletion, which is not exactly the same what we find in other parts, as well as Antarctica. So in Antarctica, we find chemical composition is different. A chemical reaction is involved in ozone depletion. I'm repeating, in the Antarctica, it is a unique type of characteristics, that is chemical reactions along with the meteorological changes. I'm repeating, chemical reactions along with the meteorological changes, which make a huge impact in the Antarctica. That's where we find the ozone hole in Antarctica. The ozone depletion in Antarctica is completely different from what you get in other parts of the world. So that should be kept in the mind. Then we made an effort in understanding the difference between global warming and climate change. What is global warming? What is climate change? The reasons for that, then again, impacts of that. Then we made an effort in understanding all the COPs and certain terms like carbon budget, adaptation, mitigation, loss and damage, phasing out, phasing down, right? So all these terms we made an understanding of those things. We made an effort in understanding all those perspectives. All those perspectives we made. Then again, we try to understand the geoengineering methods, even though they are controversial, but still we made an effort in understanding the geoengineering methodology in the context of that. Then again, different types of funds, and funds and how they are created and what are their impacts. We made an effort in understanding that, right? Then we made something regarding pollution, right? So pollution means, you should understand that the words are very important here. It is the substance or the particle, the substance or the particle whose percentage or proportion increases either in the air, water, or land, which changes the physical, biological, and its chemical properties, which become a health hazard. Then only we refer that as a pollution, right? So here we are using the word that proportion or its percentage, right? So that should be kept in the mind. Now, when we say ambient, ambient does not mean that it is referred as the most purest one. Ambience means a feasible one, a breathable air, right? So it's not a luxury part, it's a breathable air, what we say. So that's what the terms you should keep in the mind. And we made an effort in understanding ozone, ground ozone, smog, and all, right? So now we have to make a reference of India's program. So before that, I told something about National Ambient Air Quality Standards and Air Quality Index, AQI. AQI is measured with keeping 8 pollutants into criteria. AQI is measured. So always remember, AQI, Air Quality Index, is measured. AQI is measured with 8 pollutants. And all the scientific data is converted into numbers, that is less than 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 150. So we have made data so simple that people can easily understand the quality of air which they are breathing. People can easily understand the quality of air what they are breathing in their environment, which is there in their environment. So less than 50, 50 to 100 and all. And to monitor this, we have started real-time monitoring. Real-time monitoring is done by using many apps like Suffer and all. And when we say the ambient air, it means that it should have minimum and maximum. So when we say ambient, it means that it is feasible air, feasible air. Now it means that it should have certain maximum limit, within that it is considered as safe, within which it is considered as safe for survival, right? So when it exceeds that, when the particles exceeds that maximum limit, then we say that has become polluted, that has become polluted. And those particles which have increased in the percentage, we refer them as pollutants, we refer them as pollutants. This is what we studied. And to understand that whether the percentage is within the minimum range or which has exceeded that, so that range what we use to calculate, which we use to understand, is referred as the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. National Ambient Air Quality Standards. And this National Ambient Air Quality Standards is calculated for 12 parameters. 12 parameters, including PM 2.5, PM10, and also 12 parameters are used to calculate that. These parameters are used to calculate National Ambient Air Quality Standards, right? So the moment when we say if the air is satisfying the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, it means that yes, it is breathable. And this National Ambient Air Quality Standards is not uniform throughout the world. For India it is different, for US it is different, for another countries, say New Zealand, is different. For all the countries, they will have their own standards. All the countries will have their own standards, right? So every country will be having their own standards of defining the parameters. And even in the context of India, we also made an effort that the National Ambient Air Quality Standards are to be considered in two different areas, that is in the what we say residential areas, and also when we talk about the industrial areas. So these are the minimum values of the substances which are allowed, which will not be health hazards. If the number, if the percentage, if the proportion increases, then the same composition is referred as a pollutant. This is what we studied till yesterday. Now, a program which is associated with India's pollution reduction or abatement is the National Clean Air Program, which was started in the year 2019. Now, this program is city specific. You should remember that this program is city specific. City specific. That is urban area. Urban area. Why? Because in the context of India, urban places, they dominate in providing more amount of economic inputs. So they contribute more to the GDP. And these are the areas which are most polluted. The urban areas are the one which are most polluted. Most polluted. So hence, the program which was started in the year 2019, it is a collaborative approach. Collaborative means where all the central and state government and all the pollution control boards will be involved. Central Pollution Board, State Pollution Control Board, all will be involved. Ministries are also involved, right? So it is a collaborative and participatory approach. Participation of community, NGOs, etc. Central minister, state government, and local body and stakeholders. Stakeholders means the people who are in that particular state. So they all are involved in this. So it's a collaborative and participatory approach. Now, what is the objectives of this particular? The objective is to reduce the concentration of PM 2.5 and particulate matter 10, which are most dangerous in context of India. Particulate matter 2.5 and particulate matter 10 to be reduced by 20 to 30%, to be reduced 20 to 30% of the 2017 by 2024. So base year is 2017. So 20 to 30% of 2017. So whatever particulate matter were there in 2017, we should reduce the proportion by 20 to 30% by the 2024. So this is the National Clean Air Program. And this was initiated in 131 non-attainment cities. 131 non-attainment cities. Non-attainment cities. Right. So what do you mean by non-attainment cities? So non-attainment cities are those cities which are not reached or which are not qualified the national ambient quality standards of 2018. So this is where the cities which are not qualified the standards of national ambient air quality standards, which are not qualified or which are not satisfied, the national ambient air quality standards. So in those 131 non-attainment cities, this program was initiated. Now we started from 2019. We started from, see, removing of PM 2.5 means it is a approach of using clear energies, clean energies, and methodologies like different chemical perspectives or plantation of the trees or creating awareness and other aspects which can be reduced there. Maybe a scientific approach which is required to that, planting the trees, other type of observers, filtrations which were required to that. Right. Now the next part is, when we started in 2019, slowly we initiated some progress in that. Then we decided that why don't we increase the percentage part, and hence it was restructured in the year 2022, where we changed the target, where we increased the target. A new target was set up. In the year 2022, where instead of 20 to 30%, we decided that we will reduce 40% reduction, in particulate matters, right, by 2024. And this program will be from 2019 till 2026. Is it clear? Now, the assessment which has been done in the year 2023, more specifically the September-October data. So assessment which has been done here, they found that even though it started very well in the year 2019, the objectives what it initiated in the initial stage were reached partially, but after that it has become less effective. So they found that it is having many issues there. Among the issues what they identified, which is making the program less effective, is ineffective enforcement policy. Enforcement policy. Right. So it means that there is a very huge lack of motivation. So initially it started very well, but lack of motivation was there. Now understand that any community program can become successful only when people participate, when we change their behavior, when you make the people to actively involved in the program. So please keep this in the mind. Any community program will become successful only when the people become actively participate in the program. Then only the program will become successful. For that, you have to change their behavior. By that, voluntarily they should involve in the program. Then only the program will become successful. Any program, it can be community development program or it can be any community based watershed management. You need to make sure that the people's behavior has to be changed. Then only they will involve in constructive approaches. So this is one. Second one is, there was a phase where there was good coordination, but after that there was a gap in coordination. Coordination gap was there. And this coordination was, the gap was between the Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Board, right? Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Board. So there was a lack of coordination. The things were not settled in proper way. Apart from that, very basic thing is awareness issue was not created. So awareness issue was not created among the people, right? So there was a lack of awareness among the people. So that's why whenever when we talk about any program, you should gauge that whether it has become successful or not. If not, then there will be issues, and UPSC will ask such questions. Why the issues are there? Why the issues are there? Is it clear? No. Apart from that, in the year 2013, this program also introduced something called as Prana. Prana is portal for regulating air pollution in the non-attainment cities. I told you what is non-attainment cities. Non-attainment cities means those cities, which means that diluting the, yes, so when we say diluting means they are something which are reducing the impact. You can use that word, right? So non-attainment cities, portal for regulating the pollution. Now it is to check, it is to check where we have reached. That is, understand where the program has reached, what is the funds we are receiving. That to check and understand that, we initiated the Prana, portal for regulating of air pollutant in non-attainment cities. It is to monitor the implementation of National Clean Air Program, and also where we have reached that physical. And based on that, the inputs were given. That awareness is not up to the mark. There is a lack of coordination among the people, and all these you should keep in the mind. So this is the first program, which is from 2019 to 2026, about the national air pollution abatement means reduction, which talks about particulate matter 2.5 and 10. Now next we move on to understand certain datas. WHO, which has released the data, which is called as air quality database. So according to the air quality database, it says that, so generally it calculates these two, particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide. Always remember, in the global perspective, these two pollutants, that is particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide, they are referred as the major killers. That is particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide. So these two are referred as the major killers in the global perspective. So PM means 2.5 as well as 10. Particulate matter 2.5 and 10, right? And they calculated that this PM, more specifically 2.5, is capable of penetrating into deeper part of the lungs and all, which can become a very health hazard, and which can create all type of the issues, respiratory issues, strokes, etc. And when it made an assessment of all those, it found that almost entire global population breathes air which exceeds the World Health Organization standards and threatens to the health. So remember, the standards of World Health Organization are not same as the National Ambient Air Quality Standards of India. World Health Organization's standards are different. National Ambient Air Quality Standards of India are different. Both are different. They will be having maximum values which differs from each countries, right? So this is the data what you should say. According to World Health Organization, 99% of the global population is breathing the polluted air, which is a threat for the life. data. Then NO2 is associated with respiratory disease, particularly asthma, leading to wheezing and all those. Right. So two major killers you should always keep in the mind. Two major killers: particulate matter 2.5 and nitrous oxide. Then the World Air Quality Report, which was given in the year 2023, it was given by a Switzerland NGO, Swiss NGO, which is IQAR. Right. So the data which was given by that is the Aizawl in Mizoram has been the cleanest air in India. Right. And the PM 2.5 concentration in Aizawl is 11 micrograms per cubic meter, which is very, very low than what the national ambient air quality standards are there. And this reports based on PM 2.5, that is particulate matter 2.5. The city with the worst pollution, the city with the worst air pollution is Lahore in Pakistan, followed by the Hotan in China, and Delhi is fourth in number. Delhi is fourth polluted in the number. Why air quality are different? See, air quality are different because the uh, infrastructures are different, the standards are different, the quality of lives are different from one country to another country. So hence the standards will be different. If you take the New Zealand, the same standards what we are having in India may not be feasible to them because of climatic variations, because of standards of life which they are staying. Right. So hence they always vary from one country. If you take poor country, they will be having different criteria. If you take developed country in different zone, they will be having their own because of their lifestyles, because of climatic conditions, and because of the economic attitude which is done there. Right. Then Chad, Iraq, Pakistan, Bahrain, Bangladesh are five most polluted countries, and India is eighth most polluted country in the world. Eighth most polluted country in the world. And in the context of India, in the context of India, transport industry, transport industry is responsible for 20 to 35% of PM 2.5. Right. So it all depends on, see, in context of India, we find the vehicles which are still which are run in the Bharat stage 4, Bharat stage 3. But in developed countries, strong regulations are there where they maintain the high quality standards. So in that high quality standards, they have to maintain the qualities which are not same as the developing countries or poor. So hence it also changes from country to country. Right. Yes, all social aspect, their climatic aspects. So hence you can't keep them as the one. So the definition remains the same, but the criteria changes. I'm repeating, definition remains the same, but the criteria varies. Right. Now, if you take the air problem issue, if any country is having a pollutant air, or if the air is polluted, if the air is polluted, then that country or that city has to make huge amount of the financial arrangement for the treatment and for giving certain medical assistance to that. So it will always create huge impact on the GDPs. It will create huge impact on the GDPs. Plus lot of lives are lost, losses are there, more specifically with reference to life, and also large disease where it will drain the money of people as well as government. So huge losses will be there when we find such issues, pollution issues. Now the data which was given in the context of India, which they calculated in the year 2020, they found that Hyderabad, where 11,000 deaths which were seen every year, and they found that a huge amount of money is being put in abatement or providing solution for that. Then if you take Lucknow, the deaths were 6,700 and around $1 billion were there. If you take Bangalore, it was also some 12,000 and huge money was there. Then if you take the Delhi, So Delhi, where we find the issues were most dangerous, where it is 54,000 deaths and large amount of the budget was involved. So almost all in Delhi, it is 5 to 6% of the GDP of the state is involved in settling the pollution issue. 5 to 6% of GDP of Delhi is involved in settling the pollution issues. Right now, by this we can understand that Delhi is most polluted city in India. Right. So Delhi air pollution become more dangerous. Delhi air pollution becomes most dangerous one. And it has been said that Delhi has become worse than the hell. And life expectancy has reduced to 9.4. And the Delhi air pollution, it becomes very worst during winter season. Very worst during winter season. This is a traditional aspect where the Delhi has always have the winter which is worst. But if you are reading your current affairs, in the year 2023, last year, a different thing happened. So in the winter, where the Delhi always have to breathe the polluted air. In the year 2023, the Delhi pollution was not that high. The pollution in Delhi was not high. Pollution in Delhi was not high. Was not high. Now, when they made a research on that, they found that the reason for this, the pollution was less in Delhi in 2023 is associated with atmospheric and ocean phenomenon. It is associated with an atmospheric and ocean phenomenon, which takes place in Pacific Ocean, which takes place in the Pacific Ocean. And generally, we refer that as El Nino, La Nina, etc. So it is ocean and atmospheric phenomenon. Ocean and atmospheric phenomenon. The reason here is it talks about something called as the La Nina phenomenon. La Nina phenomenon. So La Nina means when the Peru current becomes much more colder. When the Peru current becomes more colder, we refer that as La Nina. And this La Nina existed there for continuously 3 years. This La Nina existed in the Pacific Ocean, for 3 years continuous, 3 continuous years. That is from 2020 to 2022, 2021, 22. So it was there for 3 years. And as it was continually there for 3 years, we refer that as the triple dip La Nina. We refer that as triple dip La Nina. Triple dip La Nina. And this triple dip La Nina, which was responsible for changing the wind direction. It was responsible for changing the wind direction. Changing the direction of wind. Not only in the Pacific Ocean, many global patterns. And this was seen in context of India also. So during the winter season, or during that phase, when the stubble burning was done, residues which were burned, so the pollution from this, the smoke from the stubble burn, generally during the winter season, it reaches to Delhi, and it can create huge havocs in the Delhi. That is normal. But in the year 2023, that is last year, we found that instead of all the smoke which can move towards the Delhi, it changed the direction because of change in the wind patterns, and it reached to the peninsular part. And it affected the regions, more specifically the Mumbai and Peninsular region. And that's why in the year 2023, Delhi did not experience the extreme pollution because of change in the direction of winds. And these winds, they carried the smokes which is formed by the stubble burning, reached to the part of peninsula, more specifically to Mumbai and adjoining areas. So hence, instead of Delhi, Mumbai and peninsular regions, they experienced more pollution compared to the previous data. So this is what we talk about the 2023. So 2023 pattern was different from the traditional pattern. So central portion, peninsular parts like Madhya Pradesh, Mumbai, all these areas, they received more pollutant than what they used to get during the same phase in the 2000, 2010, 15, etc. So this is something which is different from the traditional perspective because of the impact of ocean and atmospheric phenomenon called as the La Nina. And it was exceptional in the year 2023 due to changing of the wind patterns. Changing of the wind patterns. Is it clear? Okay. Now we'll try to understand what are the reasons for Delhi pollution. What are the reasons? This is only for 2023. This is only for 2023. Because, right. So wind always moves from high pressure to low pressure, and this La Nina has changed the pressure gradient. It has changed the pressure gradient. Is that clear? Because low temperature, high pressure. Higher the temperature, lower will be the pressure. Then the reason for Delhi's pollution. So vehicles are considered as the major pollutants. So these vehicles are responsible for releasing large amount of particulate matter. Particulate matter. So in fact, we say 32% of the pollutant, the particulate matters are released by the vehicles. That is transport section. Transport section. Then industries. So there we find large industries are there. Large industries are there, like chemical industries, glass industries, leather industries, leather industries. So these industries, they release large amount of the pollutants, the gases or the smokes. So these will emit large amount of the particles, more specifically PM 2.5, PM10 and other pollutants like sulfur pollutants, nitrogen pollutants, etc. Then in the proximity of Delhi, we find large amount of power plants and refineries are there. Thermal power plants. Thermal power plants are there and refineries are there. Oil refineries. Oil refineries. And these oil refineries and thermal power plants, they are responsible for emitting large amount of the smokes which can become a threat to the area here. Then construction activities. As Delhi is a capital, we find large amount of construction activities are there, and these construction activities, they also emit particulate matter. They also emit particulate matters, and these particulate matters have increased over a period of a time because of aggressive construction which is being done. Aggressive construction which is done, right? Then stubble burning. Now stubble burning is seen where we find the stubble burnings of the Punjab and Haryana. Punjab and Haryana, the smoke of which is carried by wind and reaches to Delhi in the winter season. In the winter season, which becomes a major problem. Now, why stubble burning is seen as the concern and why it is there? Stubble burning itself is not a problem, but the timing of stubble burning is major issue. The timing of stubble burning is major issue, right? So in all the part, even in peninsular India also, the farmers generally use the stubble burning as methodology. If you visit Maharashtra, Karnataka, so stubble burning is a traditional method of making the clean of your agriculture field, and stubble burning will also make the nutrients to add up faster than what they can decompose. So it's a method which is used by the communities. It is used by the farming communities from traditional approaches. Even in the forest also, the forest fires, they make the nutrients to mix up with the soil faster to make that faster rather than normal decomposing process. But here the stubble burning in the timing of that stubble burning makes the Delhi pollution more worst. Time and the wind patterns make the stubble burning. So stubble burning is not only in Haryana, Punjab, it is seen in southern states also. But there the wind patterns are different and the timing of them is totally different, which will not make huge impact on that areas. But why the stubble burning of Punjab and Haryana is major cause of concern. So generally, when we talk about this Punjab and Haryana, after Green Revolution, after Green Revolution, they have changed their cropping pattern. They have changed their cropping pattern, and instead of the traditional patterns like oil seeds, pulses, or millets, they have introduced a new crop called as rice. They introduced the crop called as rice. And this rice always requires more water. It is water intensive. It requires more water. It is water intensive. Water intensive. Remember, this rice is not the natural crop of Punjab. This rice is not the natural crop of Punjab or Haryana. If you see the agroclimatic regions, we always find that rice is grown in the deltas and the areas which receive heavy rainfall. Why? Because rice needs more water. The cultivation of rice, growing of rice needs more water. You always need to keep the field lodging with the water to get most yield. So rice requires more amount of water. So that should be kept in the mind. Now, when you talk about Punjab and Haryana, it is mainly because of to get more economic benefits. It is to get more economic benefit. Cost, the price of rice, which is more economic benefit. Now, what they used to do is they sow the rice during the Kharif crop. So Punjab and Haryana, they sow the rice as a Kharif crop. Kharif crop. They harvest this. They harvest this, and then in place of this Kharif crop, in place of this, after harvesting, they introduce the Rabi crop, which is wheat, and wheat is a very dominant crop in that areas, and wheat is the native crop. And this cycle they followed continuously. Right? So Kharif crop followed by Rabi. Kharif is the rice, and then Rabi crop, wheat was there. So they followed this continuously. Then when they grow the rice, the rainfall in Punjab and Haryana is very less. So that is an area where we find rainfall is also very less. And to support the growth of rice, they need to irrigate. To grow the rice, irrigation was important. Irrigation was mandatory. So this irrigation fetched large amount of groundwater. So to irrigate that, they used to extract more amount of groundwater. And this groundwater which they took for irrigation was overexploited. So overexploitation of groundwater was done. Overexploitation of groundwater was done because the rice needs more. So this overexploitation of groundwater makes the water table to fall. So water table fell to great depth in the states of Punjab and Haryana, and that created the scarcity of water, which created shortage or scarcity of water. Right? And then what they did is in the year 2009, they passed an act. By passing an act, these two states, that is Punjab and Haryana, these two states which have passed their groundwater legislation act, they passed groundwater legislation act, only these two states, Punjab and Haryana, to preserve the groundwater, to preserve the groundwater. Right. Now the acts defines that the sowing of the rice should be done once they declare the official dates. So the dates were fixed. Dates were fixed for sowing of the rice. Sowing of the rice. So they made a very significant change through this act, because before that the farmers of Punjab to make, or Haryana, they make the sowing of rice before the southwest monsoon. Before the southwest monsoon, and they used to irrigate their agricultural field. So overburden was there on the groundwater. Now the dates were fixed, which coincides with the entry of southwest monsoons. The dates were fixed, and these sowing dates, they coincides with the southwest monsoons which enters in Punjab and Haryana. So it means natural rainfall will provide. So instead of artificial water, which is provided through irrigation, irrigation is providing the water by artificial means. Providing the water through artificial means, we refer that as irrigation. Now here they wanted to reduce that burden, pressure on the groundwater. So hence they made the dates, they fixed the dates, and the farmers have to sow the rice, or they have to bring the rice only after that dates, only after this date, only after this date, so that the crop will coincide with southwest monsoon. The rice crop will coincide with the dates of southwest monsoon. Now what happened is, in India the southwest monsoons enters ideally in June 1st. By the time when it reaches to the Punjab and Haryana, it will take another 10 days to reach there. And it is not always that the monsoon will always starts from June 1st. It always varies. Sometimes it is early, sometimes it is delayed. Now this date delayed the entry of rice field. So these dates, they delayed the rice entry to the agricultural field. And as the dates of sowing were delayed, the harvest also delayed. So hence there was a delay in harvest. Right. Now this is where you should understand, as there is a delay in the harvest, then the rice crop stays for more period in the agriculture field, and after that their dominant crop is the wheat, which they grow with the western disturbances, which suffices the requirement. So after harvesting there, they have to sow the wheat. Now the harvesting time has increased, and the wheat they have to store very fast. So there is a very small gap between the harvesting and sowing of the wheat. So they found there is a small gap, very small time gap, between the harvesting of the rice and sowing of the wheat. So only method which they can find to clear the agriculture field is fire, burning them. So only method which they found, the small farmers, because there we find many small farmers are there, big farmers are there, but small farmers, ideally they found that only the best and fastest method is stubble burning. So hence the stubble burning is seen and associated with their problem with groundwater, and also the issue of southwest monsoon. So hence it has become a practice to burn the crop in that very short period, and that is where the problem started. And this smoke which is formed by the burning of stubble during the winter season, the wind directions, they carry them to the Delhi, and that is where the Delhi pollution becomes worst during that phase. So this is something about the stubble burning. So government provided many assistance, like subsidies were given, and they made many machinery arrangements to make the usage of this stubble, but still it was not beneficial. So this is something about the stubble burning. Right? See, it increases the fertility of soil, we are not concerned about that fertility. We are concerned about the smoke which is released by that, and that is the timing and the issue with the entry and sowing of the part. I'm telling you that yes, it is used as a methodology to increase the fertility. I told you that in the initial and beginning itself. But yes, it is the pollution which is concerned with that. Then topography and location. If you see the topography and location, if you take Delhi, so Delhi is having topographical aspect. In the northern side, we find Himalayas which act as a barrier. We find Himalayas which act as a physical barrier. Physical barrier. And these physical barriers, they do not make the wind to pass from India. So hence they will not allow the polluted smoke to pass. They act as a barrier for the smoke. So they contain them in the territory. Then second one is Delhi is landlocked. It is not like Mumbai, Hyderabad. If you take the states, and if you take Mumbai, it is in the coastal. If you take Kolkata, it is somewhere here, right? So these are like Chennai also. If you see, they are in the coastal. They're in the coastal. So where the sea and wind breezes are there. So the impact of water and land will be there. So here we can find strong breezes or winds will be there, which can carry the pollutant outside. But if you take the location of Delhi, it is something inside the continent where it does not have access to the sea. So the strong winds will not be there. It is like landlocked. It is like landlocked. No access to the sea. And hence, we don't find strong breezes which can take away the pollutant outside. So hence, no strong breezes which can carry. So even if you take these, there are pollutants which are in Mumbai, Chennai, and Kolkata. They are not that polluted what the Mumbai is because of their location. Because of their location. Is it clear? And here, if you see the location parameters, the winter season, the winds obviously carry the pollutants towards that area. During the winter season, the wind direction, they carry the pollutant towards the Delhi. And again, in the winter season, the pressure gradient is not that high. So the winds are very weak or feeble. The winds are very weak. Winds are not strong because of very weak pressure gradient which is there. And apart from that, if you see the location of Delhi, Delhi is in transition. Delhi is located on transition. It means that the vehicle keep on moving from Delhi. It is not an area where the destinations are there. If you take Mumbai, if you take Chennai, if you take Kolkata, where the vehicles reach and destined. But Delhi is in transition, where the vehicle keep on moving. So that is where the continuous movement of vehicles will always add particulate matter 2.5 to that area, right? So this is something, the topography and location of Mumbai is also associated with that, right? Then municipal solid waste. So in the context of Delhi, we always find the large amount of solid waste which is burnt. And this gases which are burnt, generally, if you take an example of Okla plant, where they use the method of the waste to energy, burning the waste, they produce energy. So in solid waste management, you will read about this maybe in your SNT. If not, then I'll cover that on Saturday. Where I'll be taking. So the gases which are released by that, the gases or the smokes which are released by that, so they are health hazards. More specifically, we refer them as carcinogenic, which can create disease. Carcinogenic. that is, which can create cancer, etc. Cancer, etc. Is it clear? So this can add large amount of the pollution, the pollutant to the air. Then other factors means we can take the conditions. So during the winter conditions, when we use large amount of crackers, that is the Diwali festivals, the timing where the Diwali crackers are used. So generally we find the smoke accumulates there. The smoke accumulates there. Accumulates there. And this which creates the large amount of the problem here, right? So last factor, when we say, we talk about the land. Delhi is in transition. So if you see Delhi, the vehicles from Punjab, Haryana, they keep on moving from Delhi to Uttarakhand. The vehicles from Ladakh, Kashmir, they cross Delhi and reach to the peninsular part. So it is in the transition where the vehicle keep on moving. It's not a destination where they will stop. So it keep on moving. It is a point where the vehicle keep on moving. It's just like a place from one area they reach and then again they keep on continuing. Transition route. Then the probable solutions which were given, probable solutions. One is the decomposer capsule, which is also called as the PUSA capsule. And these PUSA capsules are the fungal capsules. The fungal capsules. These fungal capsules, they were mixed with the water, and then a solution was made of that. And this solution was sprayed. And this solution which was sprayed on the crops, it softens the stubble. It softens the stubbles and decompose the residues. And here also the problem was, it takes the time, that is 20 to 25 days. It takes the time 20 to 25 days, right? Then anti-smog towers and anti-smog guns. So anti-smog, so it is something where we made an approach in putting them on the success stories of China. So China showed that yes, by using the anti-smog towers, we could make some change. And taking an experience of that, Supreme Court told that you fix some anti-smog towers in Anand Vihar or some places in Delhi. And then based on that, this anti-smog towers were fixed in Delhi. Where they were having high costs, say more than 20 crore rupees. High costs. More than 20 crore rupees were there, right? Now this anti-smog towers worked with something like the big fans were there. So these big fans will pull the pollutant air. So it is having large amount of the big fans which can pull the pollutant air, and it is having thousands of filters. So through these thousands of filters, the pollutants were stuck in that filters. The pollutions were blocked in that, and then the clean air passed from downwards. So polluted air enters here, and thousands of filters which make the trapping of the pollutants, and then we find a clean air passing from that. So they will never ask you what is the technology. So it consisted of fan, it consisted of multiple filter layers, and then the air which is passed from that, is something which is pure air. So filter air, 25 cubic meters of air per second, it can be filtered. So this is something where they talk about anti-smog towers and anti-smog guns. But recently, when you talk about the scientific communities, the scientists say that it is not as feasible as we thought. So they say that this is not as feasible as thought, because the air which it purifies is not very high volume. It is very small, and apart from that, they are having high cost. apart from having high cost. Even the Delhi Pollution Control Committee has also suggested that they are not much efficient. Even the Pollution Control Committee, Delhi Pollution Control Committee, they say that these smog towers, sorry, anti-smog towers are not efficient. Not efficient. Is it clear? The next one is hydrogen-based fuel technology. So this is something clean technology, which they thought that yes, it can something change in that. Now this hydrogen-based fuel technology, they wanted to introduce in Delhi, where you don't have to write in detail. So if your SNT is there, then you have to talk about what is this technology. So here you don't have to elaborate that technology. Just mention hydrogen-based fuel technology, which is used in many economic activities, industrial activities, or many vehicles or many industries. So this hydrogen-based technology, you should always remember the end product of that. The end product of that is something which is water, which is not harmful, right? So just remember this. Air guns were also used. Even yes, air guns were also used. The idea is to make the solid particles. See, SPM you can reduce, but not PM 2.5, right? Delhi electric vehicle policy was introduced in the year 2020. Electric vehicles policy was introduced. Now they introduced that on the basis of something providing subsidies to the electric vehicles. They made them cheaper by providing subsidies were also given. And also when we talk about them, they were exempted from road taxes. From road tax, right? So they were exempted from road taxes. Now graded response action plan. Now remember this. This is initiation and involvement of the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said that, Supreme Court in the year 2016, it says that when the pollution of Delhi is moving very worst in the months of say October, November, and December. So when the pollution is becoming very first or very worst, then you have to make some emergency plan. You have to make some emergency plan. Emergency plan. Emergency plan. And this emergency plan will reduce the pollution or pollutants in the city drastically, so that the impact will be reduced there very fast. And this emergency plan, which was introduced on the intervention of Supreme Court, is referred as the graded response action plan. Graded response action plan. So that's why when you are reading current affairs, sometimes last month they say that the Delhi had large amount of pollutants, so hence the third stage of the graded response action plan was applied. The second stage of the graded response action plan was applied. First stage, second stage of graded response action plan was applied. Now this graded response action plan is applied at four stages. When the quality of air pollutant become worst, when the quality of the air pollution or the quality of air become worst. So it is based on certain criterias. It is based on the percentage of the pollutant which increases there, and then you have to apply such types of the response action. They are in the stage one. They refer that if the PM is 2.5, particulate matter is 2.5, right, and PM 2.5 above 61 micrograms per meter cube, and PM 10, particulate matter 10, which is above 101. So this is the criteria. The moment when the air in Delhi reaches to this, the stage one is applied, that is moderate to poor. So what type of activities are done? Mechanized sweeping, then enforcement on ban of firecrackers, increased scrutiny of the vehicles. It means check the pollution of the vehicle and how they are emitting. Then if the air reaches to a stage where the PM 2.5 is above 121 and PM 10 is above 350, then stage 2 is applied. Very poor condition, ban on diesel generator, parking fee is surged to 3 to 4. Why? Discourage usage of the vehicles all the time. When the parking fees are made 100 rupees, then you will not bring the vehicle. Rather than that, we will go with the autos, because the autos will be cheaper than that. Or you will pool the vehicle, right? Or then you will make the decision to reduce the usage of vehicle. When the parking fees are more, that will discourage the usage of the vehicle. Then stop the coal and firewood eateries. Then we have something called as the stage 3. In the stage 3, where the PM 2.5 has increased very high. So the stage 3 was applied last month in Delhi, where the air was very drastically above 250 and PM2, where increase in the frequency of road cleaning was done, shutdown of brick kiln was done, then restriction of operation of coal-based power plants, and only the Bharat stage 6 vehicles were allowed. The clean vehicles were allowed in that. So this is the stage 3. Then if the conditions become very worst, that is stage 4. Stage 4, where they ban entry on the trucks except essential food items. Then halt construction work, no construction activity, stop them at least for a month. Then start odd even vehicle scheme. Start odd even vehicle scheme. This is in the last stage, when the conditions become drastically very worst. Drastically very worst. So these are the 4 stages of the graded response action plan to curb the pollution perspective in Delhi and premises. Then it was revamped, it was restructured in the year 2022 to make it more effective. So it becomes a preemptive implementation. So generally, when we talk about the previous, before 2022, this graded response action plan was applied when the condition become worst. Applied when the condition become worst. But now, preemptive means if they find any possibilities, then it can be introduced before. So this graded response action plan can be applied before the condition which has become worst, right? So they can be applied it before that. So you can enforce them before the air has hit to that. So if they find that potential capacities, or if they find that maybe next month the air is going worst, then they can apply it before the air has reached to that. So it is a precautionary measure. It is precaution, a very good sign. So it means that instead of reaching the air to reach to that target, you make arrangements in the initial stage. Apart from that, they also made some changes. They revised the stages based on air quality, right? Now the stage 1, they refer poor when it is 201 to 300. Stage 2 is applied. Initially it was only on PM2. This was applied only on PM 2.5 and PM10. But if you take the present one is applied not based on PM 2.5 and PM10, because they are the not only pollutants. Apart from that, other pollutants are also there. Now this graded response action plan, which was revamped, is based on the air quality index. That is the 8 pollutants with the benchmarks, right? So before that, it was applied only when the condition become worst, and it took only 2 criteria, PM 2.5 and PM10. But the revamped can be initiated before, and here it consists of AQI rather than PM 2.5. So PM 2.5 and PM10 are part of AQI, right? So if the air quality index become 201 to 300, then the stage 1 is applied. If the air quality becomes 301 to 400, then the stage 2 is applied. If the air quality index becomes 401 to 450, then the stage 3 is applied. And if the air quality exceeds to 450, then the stage 4 is applied. So please remember, before the criteria was based only on PM 2.5. So before it was only particulate matter, that is PM 2.5, and after this 2022 air quality index is taken into consideration. Air quality index is taken into consideration, right? Then ban on construction activities except essential projects under severe category. Under severe category. So what is severe category? This is severe categories. The stages remains the same, but the criteria has changed. The criteria has changed. Right. Then ban on industries running on dirty fuels in linear public projects such as highways, flyovers, etc. Then restriction on four-wheeler vehicles during severe categories. Right. So restriction on four-wheeler vehicles. Which four-wheeler vehicles? Bharat Stage 3 petrol and Bharat Stage 4 vehicles, which can emit pollutants. They are all facts. Don't elaborate them. Reducing working staff. Work from home is allowed. Reducing working staff. Right. During severe plus. Severe plus means the condition where it has become very worst. Where it has become very worst. Severe condition. Right. Then ban on entry of trucks in Delhi, diesel medium goods when it is severe categories. So this is what we say revamped categories. So there is a possibility that they may ask question on the revamped category. What is difference between the graded response action plan before and after 2022? Before and after 2022, where we have made revamped categories. Stages will remain the same, but the criterias and their applications have been differed. Right. So this is what you should remember. Apart from that, you can suggest many aspects. You can suggest many aspects for solutions of Delhi. Many people say that cloud seeding is one of the solution. Cloud seeding is one of the solution. But again, many scientific communities said that this cloud seeding may not be feasible for Delhi. May not be feasible for Delhi. Cloud seeding, which they thought, that is artificial rain, because artificial rain can make the settlement of suspended particulate matter, but not PM 2.5 and not PM 10. So it is very difficult for them to make. Dirty fuel means those which can emit large amount of greenhouse gases, which are dangerous in the context of the air part, right? This is also, but ideally as a geography student you can say that the possible solution is diversification of crops. More possible can be diversification of crop. Diversification of crops. So you can grow, yes, high knocking, which can lead large amount of, so for the dirty fuel means high knocking capacities, which add more impact on that. So diversification of crops, it means that instead of rice you can grow for less water intensives like pulses and oil seeds, etc. So this can be a probable feasible solution as a geography student, right? So this is all about Delhi pollution 2023 reason and its parameters. Clear? Now, apart from that, co-firing is considered as one of the better one. So compared to diversification of crops, which is better one, again one solution what is given is co-firing. Co-firing of coal and biomass. Right. So it is a systematic study which was done by Central Authority of India and Japan Coal Energy Technology. So what co-firing? Co-firing means combining. They found that if you do the combined burning of the coal and the biomass means stubble. Biomass means stubble or the residue of the crop. Residue of the crop. So if you burn them combinedly, either in the same chamber, combine them and burn in the same chamber or different chambers. If you burn them in the same or in two different chambers. So the impact is such that it will reduce the pollution. And this burning the coal along with the biomass, either in the same either in the same chamber or different chambers. It will have a huge impact on the smoke which is released. It is something like this, where the co-firing is done. If you do the co-firing, the result is it will reduce 73% of particulate matter, 47% of carbon dioxide, 5% of nitrous oxide, 98% of SO2, and 96% of CO2. So it is a very, very effective in reducing the pollution. And if you are reading the current affairs, the biomass policy, what we say, the Indian government, which has made a biomass policy. See, the chemical reactions converts them. So when you burn the fossil fuels like coal along with this, the chemical reactions which makes the secondary pollutants comparatively less are there. They will never ask you why and how they form, but remember that it will reduce large amount of pollutants. So there is a complex chemical reaction which reacts with each other and they reduce the other formats. Now, if you see the biomass policy which the government has introduced, they say that in the coming year 2024 and 2025, that is this year and next year, the government has decided that we can make the 5% of the co-firing in the thermal power plants. 5% of co-firing can be allowed in the thermal power plants. Is it clear? So there are certain points you don't have to make in-depth analysis, Shyam. Just keep them as it is because it will need a more amount of complex explanation. So co-firing will reduce the pollutants. You can remember 2 or 3. That is one. But apart from that, when you need large amount of the stubble, there it can create two things. One is it creates employment opportunities to the local people, and it also creates viable markets. So viable markets for their stubbles, viable markets for the residues. So these thermal power plants, they will purchase the residues, and the rates are, if it is mustard, 2007 to 2800, and if it is paddy, 1250 to 1300. So this is the rates of the residues, not the grains, rates of the residues which they will use in co-firing, and to accumulate that, it will generate employment in the rural economy. So hence two benefits are there. One is that co-firing will reduce pollution, and second one is it will create market plus employment in the rural. So hence government decided that yes, it is working in both the ways. It is reducing pollution also, and it is creating employment opportunities to the local people. Hence they decided, yes, we can go ahead with this. See, mulching is something where we say cut them and put. Mulching is also, you can add as much as mulching is also seen. Mulching means the residues of the crops are laid in the agricultural field. Mulching is also seen. You can add that also, not a problem, right? You can add that also. Mulching also you can add. Mulching also you can add. It means you can cut and keep them so that the water is kept, right? So many are there. I'm using few. If you see the topic, I use the term something called as the probable solution. Probable. Apart from that also you can add. It's not the perfect solution, probable solution. UPSC will never ask you the statement like what are the perfect solution, probable solution. So maybe another 3 or 4 months you may come with a new part. So these are the probable solutions where you can add this also, where you can add these probable, that is cloud seeding, diversification also. Probable solutions, possibilities, right? And you can add mulching also to that. mulching also to that, right? Then now we move on to water pollution. Air pollution we have completed. Now we move on to water pollution. So water pollution means contaminated of water. We say contaminated of water. Right. So it means that undesirable change in the physical, chemical, and biological properties of the water, where the proportion or percentage of the particles exceeds beyond the limit. We refer them as water pollution, or one water contamination. Right. So whenever when we talk about water pollution, we always define the water pollution into two types. That is point source and non-point source. Point source and non-point source. So what do you mean by point source? Where the discharge is from single source. Discharge is from single source. Single source. Now what is advantage of this when you talk about that? It is specific and identifiable. So single point. It is specific and identifiable. Right. So when it is specific and identifiable, it means that the water treatment or pollution treatment can be easy. So easy for treatment and control pollution. Control pollution. We refer that as the single point. Then we have non-point source. Non-point source. So one is point source and second one is non-point source. So how do you define the non-point source? When discharge is from multiple points. When the discharge is from multiple points. Multiple points. It can be from the homes, agricultural fields, industries, all the areas. So many multiple points are there. Now the major problem in India is large amount of pollution in India is from non-point sources. It is difficult to identify. Difficult to identify and control. And control. Non-point sources. Right. So point source and non-point sources. Now, based on which areas they have polluted, we can classify all the pollutions into three categories. That is, this is called as the marine pollution, oceans, marine pollution, and this is called as surface pollution. Surface, rivers, lakes, ponds, etc. Surface pollution, river, lake, ponds, etc. Then apart from that, when the water percolate downward, we refer that as groundwater pollution. Groundwater pollution. Generally, when the pollutants percolate downward, like the chemicals which are used in oil, gas, and all. Sometimes mining activities, the chemicals which are used in the mining activities, sometimes through the septic tanks which we use in the any homes, septic tanks, right? So from the septic tank leakages, or sometimes landfills. So landfills means in the context of solid waste management. In the context of solid waste management, when you can't segregate, when you can't segregate the the solid waste, generally you dump that in a land area, you dump that in the land areas. And this dumping of unsegregated solid waste, we refer them as landfills. Generally all are carried in the truck and dumped in some other areas, like in Bangalore they carry and dump in some other areas, we refer them as landfills. Sometimes they are efficient ones, sometimes they are less efficient, so we refer them as landfills. So it can be all these which can create the groundwater pollution, like the landfills which are being from solid waste unsegregation, the pollution from the metals and mines industries, septic tanks, right? Leakages of that. Every household will have their own toilets, so septic tank is constructed for every toilets. So there the leakages can make the water or the pollutants to carry, and this is where the groundwater pollution takes place. Groundwater takes pollution takes place, right? Then causes of water pollution, they are very simple, but sometimes if they ask you should be writing them properly. The questions will be very simple, but the content what you do is to be applied. Mulching, see, mulching means, understand, this is an agricultural field. Now you have grown a crop. After harvesting the crop, you will get a residue. After growing the rice, you will harvest that, the grains you will take, the straws will be there. Now this residues you spread on the field. This residue you spread on the field for next crop. It will cover the land surface, and that is called as mulching. So residues are spread in the field for the next crop, that is called as mulching. Agriculture field acts affects water pollution. Chemical fertilizers which are used in them, chemical fertilizers which are used in the, like urea, ammonia, NPK, pesticides. So generally in context of all the world, we find fertilizers are dominant: NPK, ureas, nano ureas, pesticides, insecticides. So they are carried by the rainy seasons. Whenever heavy rainfalls are, they are carried and they reach to the lakes, ponds, etc. So that's where they make water pollution. Is it clear? Okay. Then causes of water pollution. So causes of water pollution is oil spill and accidents. So generally in the context of many areas, we find the accidents are there, and oil spills may be due to leakages, and this sludge is a major problem in the context of that. So oil spills and accidents, which are dominant factors in large areas like oceans, sea, etc. Ocean, sea, etc. And this was which was seen in Turkey, and this was leakage from Russian tanks. Leakage from Russian tanks. Yes, do not. That's what your all geographical terms are there. So if you revise geography, then the subject become more interesting, right? So mulching is to avoid the direct impact of the sunlight to the roots. It is a method of aeration. It is a method of water conservation. It is a method of not allowing the nutrients to reach to other part. Done. Then sewage and wastewater. So many urban areas where we find untreated sewage water enters here, because many cities we don't have sewage treatment plants. Many cities we don't have sewage treatment plants. So hence this untreated water is directly allowed to enter into the rivers, right? So sewage and wastewaters from industries. Then mining activities. So in the mining activities, we always use large amount of chemicals in the process. And these chemicals, when you process them, they percolate downward and they become hazardous. Agriculture, where we talk about fertilizers, pesticides, etc. During rainy season, they reach to the water fields. They reach to the water fields. Then marine dumping. Marine dumping. So this is a type of pollution which is seen in many countries, the developed countries as well. So they carry the pollutants from their boundary, from their coastal area, and they move up to 8 to 10 kilometers, and then they dump in the ocean. They dump in the ocean. We refer that as marine dumping. And generally major problem with the marine dumping is, so this marine dumping, it does not have only the solid waste, it can have electric waste also, plus it can also have certain nuclear waste also. Some nuclear waste can also be there. So it can have e-waste and sometimes nuclear waste also, right? So marine dumping is considered as major threat for the oceans or the seas where it is done. Then leakage from the landfills. So this is where we say unsegregated solid when it is dumped. So this is an example of landfill. Example of landfill, right? Then acid rain. Large amount of the acid rain where the pH value is less than 5.6. So that will also impact on the water body. So this is something which we refer them as the pollution and the pollutants. Is it clear? Now next we moved on to a process called as eutrophication. Now what is this eutrophication? In a very simple term, eutrophication means the enrichment of the water bodies with the nutrients. In a very scientific term, we say it is enrichment of water bodies with nutrients. We refer that as eutrophication. Enrichment of water bodies by nutrients, we refer that as eutrophication. Now understand this. This is a lake. A lake is there, or any pond, right? Now here we find many agricultural fields, urban areas, industries are there, right? Settlements are there, many people who are staying. And this lake or water body, any water body, lake, pond, a river, anything we say. So here we find that here from the agriculture fields, we find large amount of fertilizers which are used. They are washed during the rainy season. So these fertilizers, they consist of the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, etc., which are referred as nutrients, which enter into this lake. Then from the urban settlements also, when we dump large amount of wastewater, so these wastewater, which is a pollutant for us, but they consist of nutrients. So they also consist of nitrogen, phosphorus, etc. Industries also, when they dump the water here, so it will also have nitrogen, phosphorus, all these. So this water become rich with nutrients. Very rich with nutrients. And this water body, when it is rich with the nutrients, then we refer that as eutrophication. We refer this as eutrophication. Enrichment of water body with the nutrients. Now, as it has become rich with the nutrients, then it will lead to uncontrolled growth of algae. It is something like every morning if you are drinking the cup of Horlicks, then again after 1 hour again you are drinking 2 cups of Boost. So you are adding nutrients to your body continuously, uninterrupted, right? So this uncontrolled enriched nutrients, more nutrients which are added to the lakes, so this will lead to uncontrolled growth of algae. Which uses the nutrients for their part. And this uncontrolled growth of algae, we refer that as algal bloom. uncontrolled growth of algae, we refer that as algal bloom. Algal bloom. So eutrophication will lead to algal bloom. Eutrophication will lead to algal bloom. Right. Now, next, understand that. What happens when there is an algal bloom? What happens when the algal bloom is there? Yes, algal bloom is a sign of polluted water. Algal bloom is a sign of polluted water. It is an indicator. It is a sign of polluted water. First understand the process, then you might. Don't make conclusions very fast. Algal bloom. So what happens when the algal blooms are there? So this area, when the complete area is covered by algae, when the surface is covered by the algae during the algal bloom, the surface is covered by the algae, the water surface will be covered by algae, right? So penetration of sunlight decreases. Sunlight penetration decreases. This is one. Second, the atmosphere oxygen which can mix with the water also decreases. Atmospheric oxygen which can enter also decreases. Right. Now, when the sunlight which can penetrate downward decreases, it means photosynthesis is affected. So this will affect photosynthesis. It will affect photosynthesis. Right. And when the atmospheric oxygen is also not entering, so this oxygen is also reduced here. So because of that, the areas where they are having algal blooms, so that area will show the drastic decrease of oxygen. So this area will have shortage of oxygen. So now it will show the symptom, shortage of oxygen. And that water where we find shortage of oxygen is there, we refer that as hypoxia. Shortage. So this will create a condition called as hypoxia. Right. Now already this water has shortage of oxygen. Already there is a deficiency of oxygen in that water. Now these algae, when they die, and the organisms which are there, marine organisms, when they die, so they are decomposed by bacteria. These marine organisms, they are decomposed by bacteria. Now how the bacteria decompose them? By using oxygen, aerobic part. So these bacteria decompose them by using oxygen. So already this is having a shortage of water. Already there is a dearth of oxygen, and these bacteria will also use the oxygen and they will decompose that. So that area will have severe shortage of oxygen. Use the oxygen for decomposing. So there will be extreme severe of oxygen will be there. And when the extreme severe of oxygen is there, this hypoxia will convert into anoxia. Hypoxia will become anoxia. Very extreme shortage of water. And when there is an anoxia, conditions are there, very severe shortage of oxygen, then the marine species there, or the organisms which are there, as there is a shortage of oxygen, so there will be a dearth of oxygen where they will feel suffocation. These marine organisms, they will feel suffocation. And as their energy is very low, they can't leave the water body and move. As there is a shortage of oxygen, their energy is very low. It is something like this: when our energy is very low, we can't come out of the bed, we will sleep there only, we don't feel like moving outside. So their energy level will be very, very low, and they feel the suffocation. So because of that, because of this, because of suffocation and energy level which is very, very low, bulk of organisms die there. Bulk of organisms die. And this area where they die bulk, we refer that as the dead zones. So that creates the dead zones. That create the dead zones. So this is entire thing what we refer that as eutrophication and the dead zone. So I told that global warming, the dead zone is created by climate change. Yes. The dead zone is also created by pollution. Yes. So this dead zone is created by two ways. One is by the impact of climate change, and second one is by the impact of pollution. Pollution. Is that clear? So this is what we refer them as the aspect of, yes, aspect of that, right? So remember these things. Organisms, above that suffocation, organisms, marine organisms or water organisms, the species like fish, prawns, crabs, etc. So we refer that as the dead zones. See, Sargasso Sea is not a dead zone. Sargasso Sea is a weed. It is a weed. It is not a dead zone. Sargasso is a weed which is different from these. It's not a, that is not an algae. It is a weed. Sargasso is a weed which is found in Antarctic Ocean. It is a halopelagic. Don't confuse that. Sargasso is a halopelagic plant. Salt tolerant weeds. Halopelagic are weeds. They are not the algae. Don't confuse that. So these organisms, they may compose, they may not be composed. So when there is a shortage of oxygen, bacteria will not decompose that. So that is the reason why if you visit any eutrophic lakes, you will find a foul smell. Now, if you are studying in your room, a rat has been died and it is undecomposed. A rat has died somewhere in your study rack or somewhere, and it has not decomposed. Then do you have a good smell or foul smell? Undecomposed rat which is there in your study room. So that rat which is undecomposed will always have the foul smell, and this is what the eutrophication says. So when these dead organisms which are undecomposed, why? Because the shortage of oxygen. When the shortage of oxygen will be there, then always they will have foul smell. Dirty smell will be coming from such. If you visit Alsur Lake in Bangalore, visit that once, you will find such. You visit Hussain Sagar Lake in Hyderabad, experience the smell of that, right? So where the bacteria is unable to decompose that, right? So this is what the eutrophication and its part. So the bacteria can decompose, but they do not have oxygen. So they need the oxygen. If you supply oxygen, then the bacteria will decompose that. So the decomposition can be done by bacteria only if there is sufficient amount of oxygen. Without the oxygen, the decomposition cannot be done. Without the oxygen, decomposition cannot be done. Is it clear? So eutrophication and this entire process, right? This is what we refer them as dead zones or the biological desert. So that's why when we say much of the marine areas or the coastal areas, they are converting themselves into biological deserts. Biological deserts, it means where productivity is very low. Productivity is very, very low, right? So dead zones are referred as biological deserts. So this is what we refer them as a dead zone, and this is Gulf of Mexico. Gulf of Mexico, where the river, where the river, which add large amount of nutrients, and this leads to algal bloom, which leads to the dead zone, which can create death. So this is an example of dead zone. Even in Arabian Sea also we find that. So many parts of the world we find dead zones are created. Dead zones are created. See this. So these all are dead zones. Wherever industrial countries are there, we find they are there. So these are the dead zones. Dead zones. So remember the terms hypoxia. It becomes very worst, then we refer that as anoxia. That is depletion of oxygen. And remember the decomposition of organic pollutant. Decomposition of organic pollutant can be done by bacteria only if it is having oxygen. Only if it is have oxygen. If the bacteria do not have oxygen, then they don't do decomposition. They will decrease the decomposition. So that's why any areas where algal blooms are there, decomposition will not happen. And the dead fish, the dead plants will always give the foul smell in such areas. So this is all about the eutrophication, algal blooms, hypoxic conditions. All whatever I have explained is been defined here. Is been defined here, right? Sometimes they may ask, it's the same question in UPSC. The same questions you can get in UPSC as well. Is it clear? See, algae are having capacity of develop oxygen, but sunlight is not reaching. The algal bloom is blocking the sunlight. Please understand, the algal bloom is blocking sunlight. So this sunlight is not entering, and that is where there is a depletion of oxygen. I told you in the two stages. Okay. Then biological oxygen demand. So it is where you have to understand biological oxygen demand and dissolved oxygen. Both are two different terms. Biological oxygen demand and dissolved oxygen are two different terms. So biological oxygen demand is where a demand is made. Now, who will make a demand? Demand is made by the bacteria. It is demand. Demand. It is made by bacteria. Now, what they demand? They demand oxygen. These bacteria will demand oxygen. Oxygen. Why? For decomposing. They demand oxygen for decomposing. Decomposing. So this is called as the biological oxygen demand, which is made by the bacteria for decomposing of organic waste. Organic waste like dead fish, dead plants, etc. Right. And dissolved oxygen means it is the amount of oxygen which is present in the water. It is amount of oxygen which is present in the water. Right. If the dissolved oxygen is less or if it is low, then we refer this as hypoxia or anoxia. Hypoxia or anoxia. Then if the biological oxygen demand, if you are reading, so it is demand made by the bacteria for the organisms. So if the demand is high, if the demand is high, it means that there is a shortage of oxygen, so bacteria are demanding more. If the demand is high, it means there is a shortage of oxygen. It means that If the demand is high, then the water is more polluted. The water is more polluted. So hence biological oxygen demand is used to measure the pollution in the water. So biological oxygen demand is used to understand the pollution in aquatic water bodies. Higher the biological oxygen demand, higher the water is polluted. If the biological oxygen demand is less, then the water is clean. Then the water is clean, right? So if the biological oxygen demand is less, then we say it is very good. If the biological oxygen demand is very high, if it is very high, then we say it is very highly polluted water, right? So any water which we breathe, which we drink, you should remember that this water which we use, it should have low biological oxygen demand, and it should have high dissolved oxygen, high dissolved oxygen, then it is feasible for drinking. I'm repeating, any water which we use, the water which we use, it should have low biological oxygen demand. The bacteria should demand less oxygen, or it should have high dissolved oxygen. Then this can be used for drinking. Is it clear? Biological oxygen demand and dissolved oxygen. Then Namami Gange project. Now, the moment when you talk about Namami Gange project, so remember that it all initiated in 1986. So the Ganga Action Plan was initiated in the year 1986. Initiated because when we talk about the river, any river, it is polluted because of discharge from industries, agriculture field, etc. Right? So industries, agriculture, etc. Will they add large amount of discharge there? Or sometimes when there is a drought, it leads to shortage of water. Shortage of water, and this shortage of water makes the water to be stagnant, where the pollutants are not flowing, and stagnant water will always have pollution. Stagnant water always have pollution. Is it clear? So this is something where we find. So many rivers in India are more polluted. Untreated waters are there. The cultural activities which we do, like in the context of Ganga, unburnt bodies are thrown in the rivers. So many cultural aspects which we do. So we find because of that, many rivers are being polluted. Sometimes we dump the solid waste in them. We dump solid waste in the rivers. So all these are the reason for the river pollution. And Ganga is the one which is most polluted in the context of the major rivers of India. And hence, to abate the Ganga, to clean the Ganga, we initiated Ganga Action Plan in the year 1986. Ganga Action Plan in the year 1986. And this Ganga Action Plan, which was revised in the year 2014, we refer that as Namami Gange. The Ganga Action Plan, which was revised in the year 2014, we refer that as Namami Gange. Now, flow of that is this Ganga Action Plan. In 1991, it included, along with the Ganga, its tributaries like Yamuna, Gomti, Damodar. Then, to make a coordination between the river and its pollutants, we needed a plan, we needed an authority. And it is not the only Ganga river which is polluted. Many rivers in India were polluted. Many rivers were polluted. Right. So hence, we made an effort in 1995 to create a national river conservation plan. It is to make plan for not only Ganga, other rivers also. Ganga and other rivers were also taken here. Then we created a National Ganga River Basin Authority under the Environment Protection Act of 1986. to strengthen this national river conservation plan, not only in Ganga, in all the rivers. Now the authority which was headed by prime minister, which was headed by prime minister. Now the activities of national Ganga basin authority is to pool the resources, finance, knowledge, etc. Implement the plan, implement the plan, create awareness, right? So it is to pool the resources, implement awareness, and also assess about the development of the work which has been done here. This was in the year 1986 Act, where the National Ganga River Basin Authority was created in the year 2009 to strengthen the program. We made a change in that. We restructured that. We restructured that. We restructured National Ganga River Basin Authority, and in place of that, National Mission for Clean Ganga was established. So National Ganga River Basin Authority was replaced by the National Mission for Clean Ganga. National Ganga River Basin Authority is replaced by the National Mission for Clean Ganga in the year 2011 with two objectives. One is to make abatement of pollution and rejuvenation of Ganga. Abatement of pollution and rejuvenation of Ganga, which we refer as a clean water to be moving there. We refer that as the Nirmal Dhara. We refer this as Nirmal Dhara. That is clean water. Clean water, abatement of pollution and rejuvenation of Ganga. Nirmal Dhara was there. Then along with that, the second objective is to maintain the e-flow for Ganga. So Ganga is the only river where by passing an act, we have created e-flow of river. So e-flow means environment flow. Environment flow. So what is this environment flow? Environment flow is, it is the minimum amount of water. Minimum amount of water should be kept in the river. Should be kept in the river for maintaining the river ecosystem. River to maintain river ecosystem. River ecosystem. You can't divert entire water of the Ganga or any river for drinking. So minimum amount of water should be maintained in the river, and this minimum water should reach from source to the mouth. Mouth means where it reaches to the ocean. So river should have minimum amount of water, because river is an ecosystem, and in the river we find it has large amount of biotic communities are there. Biotic communities are there, like the algae, the plants, organisms which depends on the river, and they have to be maintained. And to maintain these biotic communities, then we have to maintain the minimum amount of water. So this minimum amount of water which has to be kept in the water. So if there is a drought, you can't make 100% of diversion. So that's why if you are reading your river disputes, the decisions which were given, if you take an example of Kaveri dispute, so there they say the Kaveri has to maintain minimum amount of e-flow. Ganga has to maintain minimum amount of water in all the seasons which can reach to the water. So this minimum amount of water which has to be maintained in the river, we refer that as e-flow. Now when the water is flowing, it will take the pollution and dump. If the water is stagnant, then the pollutants will accumulate in that area. So the idea is that it will make the water to flow and reach to larger areas, right? So hence they have to maintain e-flow in the water, and by passing an act, we maintained e-flow in Ganga, and this is called as Aviral Dhara, uninterrupted flow of water. We refer this as Aviral Dhara. Aviral Dhara. So remember two aspect: Nirmal Dhara, Aviral Dhara. Nirmal Dhara means clean water. Aviral Dhara means uninterrupted water, which has to move from the river and reach here. So that should be kept in the mind. National Ganga Council replaced. See, National Ganga River Basin Authority has by replaced by this National MCG. National Ganga River Basin Authority is replaced by National Mission for Clean Ganga. So this is in 2011 and this is in 2009 and this is in 2011. So it is replaced by this. Okay. Right. Then we have something called as the National Ganga River Basin Authority Plan First, which was operating and where it created the 4,535 crores till December 2021. That is the National Ganga River Basin Authority Plan, which started from 2014 till December 2021. Now we have approached to the World Bank and we received the World Bank assistance and loan of 3,000 crore rupees for second National Ganga River Basin Authority. Now this aspect of the World Bank assistance, World Bank assistance is not applied in all the states. It is not applied in all the states. Now if you remember the Ganga, Ganga Basin. Ganga Basin means Ganga and its tributaries. Now, in how many states the Ganga basins are there, including its tributaries? So the Ganga Basin is spread in 11 states. It is spread in 11 states. And if you take the total area of that, so 79% of the Ganga Basin is in India. 79% of basin is in India. River basins, that is river and its tributaries. So 11 states are there where the Ganga and its basins are there. Now the World Bank assisted program is not for 11 states. So this is for the states Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand and West Bengal. So it is only in these 5 states. This is only in these 5 states. Now what is for all the basins? So for all the basins we made a budgetary allocation. For all these there is a budgetary allocation which is done. And this budgetary allocation for all the states, including this, all the states, we have something called as 22,500 crores. 22,500 crores, and this will be till 2026. Till 2026. So this should be what you have to keep in the mind, right? And the National Ganga Council, which was created in the year 2016, where it will have the Prime Minister as the chairman and chief ministers of the states. Chief ministers of the states where the Ganga is flowing are members. Chief ministers of the states where the Ganga is flowing. So this is all about the Clean Ganga project. This is all about the Clean Ganga project. Yes, rest is flowing in Bangladesh. I hope it is clear, right, Satyam, that National Ganga Council and it's a words where mistakes were there. So National Ganga River Basin Authority is replaced by National Mission for Clean Ganga, right? And this is what the data you should remember. And when you talk about Ganga Action Plan, it depends on the 6 main pillars. That is sewage treatment infrastructure, river surface cleaning that so that eutrophication should not be there, planting more trees, planting more trees. Then industrial effluent monitoring has to be done. Then riverfront development. So riverfront development means where we have crematoriums are there, burning is there, right? So upgrade them, upgrading them, upgrading them, and also take the methods like Swachh Bharat Mission, etc., so that the river fronts are developed. Then biodiversity should be increased because they can work the work of bioremediation. Public awareness. So as I told, without public awareness, the program will not become successful, right? So all these are intervention areas. 8 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. 8 parts. Ganga Gram, which can be a model for that. So these are referred as the main pillars of Namami Gange program. Is it clear? So what we can do is we can have a break and then we can start the class at around 8:10. Is it okay, or 8:15 you want? 8:10 or 8:15? Done. So we'll start the class at 8:15. Done, done. Minimum 15 minutes. We can have a tea and come back. We'll meet up again at 8:15. So, welcome back after a break. So, hope I am audible as well as visible to you all, right? Done. See, I am explaining all the concepts. So, facts, you can take it from either PIBs or the notes what you get. So, you should focus on the current related facts. And concepts you can take from what we have discussed. So you keep these ppts as your skeletons and take the points, the datas from reports and all, which you will getting maybe for another 2 or 3 months, which we have accumulated datas, right? So those who are writing in 2025 also, the same concept remains the same. Only the data will change. Only the data will change. Like what I have discussed in Delhi pollution 2023. Next year it may not be the same, because this year again we have reached to phase from La Nina to El Nino phase. So El Nino is something which can change again the temperature perspectives. So basics will be the same. Only you should work out on the words and the language. Words and language. Right. Now, next is about bioremediation. So bioremediation means it is a process which uses microorganisms, plants, and microbial enzymes to reduce the pollution. So bioremediation, it is using of living organisms to abate the pollution, reduce the pollution, reduce the pollution. And when we are using the plants, we refer that as phytoremediation. Remediation. Now, when we talk about this microorganisms, generally these microorganisms are used for the reducing the pollution, which is mainly organic pollution. Mainly organic pollution. Organic pollution. Right. Now remember, the moment when you say organic pollution, it means that you need one bacteria which can decompose them, which can decompose. And another thing which is required for that is bacteria can decompose only when it is sufficient oxygen. Only when it is having sufficient oxygen. Sufficient oxygen. And when you talk about the plants which are used in bioremediation, plants can be used in the context of reducing the pollutions when they are heavy metallic one, pollutants which are heavy metals like mercury, etc., etc. So marine organ, sorry, the bacteria and all these small organisms are used during the organic pollution. Now, generally, when we talk about this bioremediation process, it can be in situ or it can be ex situ. It is of two types. It can be in situ or it can be ex situ. In situ and ex situ. So, the moment when you talk about in situ, it is treating the pollutants in their own area. Treating in their area. Treating the pollutants in their own area. Ex situ means you take that particular out of its area and treat. You take the pollutant, you take that content out of its area. The treatment is done out of area. It means that it is taken out, treated, and then it is left back. So there can be two types of bioremediation, in situ and ex situ type of bioremediations. Then next is, what are the different types of in situ and ex situ? The first one is called as bioventing and bioaugmentation. Both are in situ. In situ. Now, what is bioventing? So, bioventing is the area where we are having the bacteria. Bioventing is an area where the pollutants are there, like the land pollution. pollutants which are there in the land pollutants, where there is large amount of organic pollutants are there, and they are having bacteria, that is having bacteria. And these bacteria can perform only when you provide oxygen to that. So hence in bioventing, oxygen is supplied. Oxygen is supplied to the area. So oxygen is supplied to the contaminated areas, right? Then oxygen, when it is injected, then it will accelerate the decomposing process. So supplying of oxygen to the area, we refer that as bioventing. So oxygen is supplied. Then second one is bioaugmentation. So there is a region. There are certain areas where the pollution has occurred again in the land, or sometimes in small water bodies, where we find there is a shortage of bacteria. There is a shortage of bacteria. Shortage of bacteria, and also oxygen shortage there. So what you will do is, in this process of bioaugmentation, you have to supply both. You have to supply bacteria, and you have to supply oxygen also. Supplying the bacteria, augmentation means supplying. So you will supply their bacteria. So these bacteria which are supplied there, right? So generally we supply naturally occurring bacteria. Naturally occurring bacteria, or sometimes we make the presence of genetically modified microorganisms. Genetically modified microorganisms. So we refer that as the bioaugmentation. Bioaugmentation, right? Then biospurging. So biospurging is when the air is pushed down with pressure below the water table. Below the water table. So this air is pushed below this water table. So when the air is pushed, it will increase the concentration of oxygen. It will increase the concentration of oxygen, and this oxygen will make the degradation very faster. And because of the pressure, we find the pollutants, they can reach to the upper surfaces. So we refer that as biospurging. So the air injection is done with pressure. Air injection is done with pressure. Is it clear? The pressure makes the volatile compounds to reach to the surface. So this volatile compound, which is referred as a pollutant, will reach to the surface, right? And then the bacteria will act on them, and they will convert them. We refer that as biospurging process. And this is also in situ. Then we are having land farming. So this is ex situ. Like when we have land contamination, so contaminated soil is excavated and spread outside. So this is a contaminated soil. It is excavated, digged out, and spread outside. Spread out in other area. You will spread that in other areas. You dig out from that area and spread in other areas, right? And after spreading here, you will add bacteria to that. You will add nutrients to that, so that the bacteria will eat the nutrients and existing nutrients, and continuously tilling is done to that. That is, mixing is done to that, right? So here you are adding water continuously to that. So continuously water, continuously tilling. These bacterias, they will enhance the degradation here because of the presence of oxygen. And we refer that as land farming type of bioremediation. And this is referred as ex situ. Ex situ. Then composting bioremediation. Right. Sometimes when you are having the organic waste like cow dungs or the dead plants, the leaves of the dead plants, you mix them with microorganisms like earthworms, so that it will convert them into something called as manure, which you use them for agricultural field. We refer that as composting. So bringing together the contaminated soil with non-hazardous organic material such as manure. So these contaminated soils which are maybe polluted with many types of the pollutants, maybe oil pollutant, maybe many. So here you will mix them with these organic manures are formed when the organisms, example, the earthworms, when they feed on these dead plants and animals, we refer that as vermicomposting. And this vermicomposting, you add that to the area where the pollutants are there, and along with this vermicomposting which is added there, so the bacteria which are present in that region, the bacteria which are present in this vermicompost will reduce the pollutant in that area. So you don't have to write in detail about all these, just remember the headings: composting bioremediation, land farming ex situ, biospurging, high pressure air is put downward below the water table, so that it will enhance the biodegradation and the volatile compounds will move to the surface. Then in bioaugmentation, you are supplying microorganisms and oxygen, and in bioventing you are supplying only oxygen. So this is called as the bioremediation using the microorganisms. Then next one is phytoremediation. So what is phytoremediation? It is using up of the plants, green technology, using up of the plants. Now generally when we talk about, yeah, land farming you can say. So this is where we say it is where the ex situ is done. Land farming means a contaminated soil is there, you dig that out of that and spread in some other areas. A contaminated soil, maybe oil contaminated, maybe of anything, you dig that, you take it out, that is called as excavation, and then you spread outside, and then continuously you add water to that, tilling you do, then the bacteria which are there, they will react and reduce that. That is called as ex situ type of bioremediation, right? Then phytoremediation means where we talk about using of the plants for reducing the pollutions, and generally this is used for removing the pollutions which are heavy metals, right? And comparatively it is referred as cheaper, and this is in situ, treating within that, in situ. So we say it is cost effective, and generally many plants are used, but the very dominant one are like willow, which can absorb the pollutants through their roots, or sometimes indian grass, which is also a pollutant. Then poplar tree, then sunflower, sunflower, and very common is Indian mustard. Indian mustard. So these are the plants which are used in phytoremediation. More commonly, these are the plants which are used in phytoremediation. Phytoremediation, right? Now, here these plants, they absorb the pollutants, and either they will store in the roots, they will store in their stems, or they will do the chemical reactions when they interact with the sunlight, and they convert them into less harmful products which are released again to the earth's atmosphere. So that type of the activities where the plants are involved, where they absorb the pollutants, either they will store in the root, either they will store in the roots, or they will make Indian grass, Indian grass, Indian grass. So they will store them either in their root or shoots, which can be removing of the pollutants from the water or from the land. So here they will never ask you in detail about that. Never ask you in detail about that. You have to understand the names which is sufficient. Names which is sufficient. The names are it can be rhizo degradation, when the breakdown of material is done by rhizospheric microorganism, nitrogen fixing bacteria, which reduce them in the root. Rhizosphere degradation. Then then we are having something called as phytofiltration. So it is sequestration of the heavy metals through the roots. Sequestration means taking out, absorbing heavy metals from the water. We refer that as phytofiltration. Phytodegradation, breaking down or transformation of the metals by enzymes in the tissues, so that it will not be having much impact of that. Then phytoextraction, accumulation of metals in their shoots, in the shoots. And sometimes they are stored in the roots. We refer that as phytostabilization. You keep them within the roots. So if they are in the roots, we refer that as phytostabilization. If they reach to the branches, we refer that as phytoextraction. So this is the mode in which the plants are used in that. Plants as purifier. Yes, they are also referred as purifier for groundwaters. But here we are talking about the pollutants and their impact. So please remember the terms, that is more than sufficient. I have given you the list also. Phytoremediation, phytostimulation, phytovoltaization, that is to take up contamination, right, and transform them into volatile contaminants into atmosphere, into something which are less hazardous, and then use. Phytoextraction, rhizofiltration, then phytostabilization. So please read them, and they will help you in match the following. So the words are very, very important. Don't elaborate them in detail. That is not required. Don't elaborate them in detail. Is it clear? So phytoremediation means which one you want, Dipesh? Please be specific which you want to be explained. The land farming or phytodegradation? Right. Now, water pollution solutions. Now, in the context of India, water pollution solutions, one is waste treatment, then solid waste management. Solid waste management, that is maybe not this Saturday, next Saturday, I may be taking. Effective implementation of laws and regulations, creating awareness among the people, government programs and the schemes, government programs and the schemes. Phyto degradation. See, so when we talk about phyto degradation, certain plants, certain plants, they take up the pollutants. They take up the pollutants and they use them. Either they, they use them, either they, they use them, or 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 they use accumulate them in their roots, or they accumulate in their stems. Accumulate in their stems. They take them, either they store in their roots or accumulate them in their stems by changing their composition, working with them and changing with their composition. And by that, what contaminated pollutants are there, they are slowly damaged by the plant tissues. They are damaged or reduced, degraded by the plant tissues, right? Okay. Bioremediation using of that watershed management and e-flow. So these are, yes, so basically it refers to the plants which are seen to reduce the concentration of any contamination by using them either in the roots or shoots and converting them into something less hazardous by the activity of the tissues. That is the scientific term. Then next is something about the oil pollution. Now, when we have oil pollutions, we always make bioremediation and other. So bioremediation in the oil pollution. If there is oil pollution, then we make the methodology of oils offer. So oils offers is where the bacterial stains, they are mixed. Different bacterial stains are mixed. They are mixed or combined, and this bacterial stain which is mixed, we refer that as a zapper, oil zapper. And this bacterial stain which is mixed is led to keep in the areas where we find the oil pollution has occurred, where it is having large amount of hydrocarbons, or the region which is having oil sludge. So these bacteria, they act on the hydrocarbon and oil sludge and convert this hydrocarbon or oil sludge into carbon dioxide and water. And then it is easy to get dissolved in the water bodies. So this is what we refer as oil zapper and its activity. Oil zapper means different stains, 5 different stains of bacteria are packed, and they are let in the areas where the hydrocarbons, oil sludge or pollutants are there. And these bacteria, they act on these hydrocarbons, and they convert these hydrocarbon into carbon dioxide and water, and that it is easy to decompose in the water body. So that is called as the oils offer, which is bioremediation. Then apart from that, we also have certain methodologies, like if the oil leakage is very high, if it is very more, then we will initially use the booms. So what is the rule of booms? So they act as a fence. So these booms, they act as a fence, and they will control the spreading. They will act as a boom, and they will control the spreading. It means they will prevent the oil to spread. So it will act as a boundary. So that is called as using the booms. So once it is controlled, then burning is done to that. Controlled burning is done to that. And after that, when the burning is done, then remaining contaminations which are there, we use the skimmers. Which can suck up the oil from the water surfaces. So after burning, we use the skimmers to absorb the remaining oil. So booms, burning, skimmers. skimmers are used. And after that there are possibilities that the skimmers will not absorb everything. So again, small oil will be there. Then what we will use? We will use the sorbents. We will use the sorbents. Now these sorbents will also absorb them completely. They will also absorb them completely. Absorb them completely. Now, in spite of sorbents, where they can absorb the oil from the water used, right? So in spite of that, there is some possibility of 5%, 10% is left out, and for that we use something called as dispersant. Dispersant. So this dispersant, which is added at the last stage, instead of when we are unable to keep that completely clean, we add this dispersant. Now the work of disbursement is that it acts on that area where we find water molecule and the oil is clubbed. So it disintegrates that bonding. It disintegrates. It disintegrates or break the oil bond and water. It disintegrates or breaks the oil bond and water, so that we can separate that oil bond, oil strains, and again sucking can be done here. So this is how we can reduce the oil pollution or tackle the oil pollution which is seen in many parts of the world, right? So using the dispersant. So remember, bioremediation, that is using of oil zafar, that is bioremediation. Apart from that, technologies. So these all are technologies. These all are technology. So oil pollution can be controlled by two things. One is bioremediation, and second one is by using a technology. By using a technology. Right. So remember here, when we talk about the bioremediation, when you talk about bioremediation, bacterial stains which were used, that is one example. And when you talk about the technology, remember booms, in situ burning, skimmers, sorbents, dispersants, which has been shown by many institutions, including National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. This is burning in situ. This is burning in situ. In situ means in its own place. In situ burning. So it is in situ because we use booms where it is not spreading. Right. Then important conventions. Important conventions. One is Minamata Convention. So it is in the context of mercury pollutant. And this mercury is released by many ways. It can be released by natural process like volcanic activities, and it can be released by man-made example, mining activities. I'm giving one example of that, right? So here it is to protect the human health and environment from contamination of mercury and mercury compounds. It was signed in the year 2013 and entered into force on 2017, and India ratified that in the year 2018. And if you are reading your current affairs, the last 147th member which ratified that, the last member which was ratified 147th is Kenya. Remember all these which are important in the context of your preparation. Kenya, the 47th member. Then Basel Convention. It is a control of transboundary movement of hazardous wastes. Transboundary movement of hazardous waste and their disposal. And their disposals. So these wastes, they are moved from country A to country B. Country B. We refer that as the transboundary movement. Country A to country B. And to protect the human health and environment against the adverse effects of these hazardous waste. So they can include e-waste also. They can include e-waste also. And this entered into force in the 5th May of 1992. Hazardous waste means which can have a threat. Hazardous waste means it can have a threat. So it is about reducing the movement of hazardous waste, and also it talks about restrict the trade of waste disposal. Restrict the trade of waste disposal. Restrict the trade of waste disposal across the borders, right? Or regulate regulate the trade which is done between the two countries. So generally, if we take the trade, the waste which are generated by USA, it can be electric waste or any waste. So they are traded with the developing countries, like large amount of waste which are generated by USA and all. So they reach to and India, where sometimes we use them for recycling. We use them for recycling. So this type of the waste which are reaching, some of them are hazardous waste, some of them are hazardous waste. So to prevent them, we use the convention called as Basel Convention. Then this is Stockholm Convention, persistent organic pollutant. Stockholm Convention, right? So it is to protect the human health or environment from persistent organic pollutant. Persistent organic pollutant. Now, what are persistent organic pollutants? So persistent organic pollutants are, they are highly toxic and they can last for many years in the environment before they degrade, and they bioaccumulate in the food chain, and they are transported over large distances through air and water, and they can enter into the body tissues, and by which they can harm the organs. We refer them as persistent organic pollutants that stay long in the organism, in the environment. So they are staying for a long, persistent, which stays there. So these are the characteristics of persistent organic pollutant, right? And here it divides the organ, it divides them into three. Annex 1, which can be eliminated. Annex 2, which has to be restricted. Annex 3, which are produced and released unintentionally. Now they will never ask you in detail about that, but remember, if any of the pollutant is in the current affairs, maybe in the year 2024, if any new pollutant is added to this list or this list or this list, then you can use that as your current affairs factual data. And such questions, if they are asked in the examination, generally we refer them as difficult questions. Right? Then Rotterdam Convention. Prior informed of consent procedure. So it is before about certain hazardous chemicals and pesticides in the international trade. So if there is a trade between country A and country B, then A has to inform to B about what objects it carries, what particles it carries. So prior information has to be done. Prior information. And after giving that, B has to agree. He will say what content is there he is transferring from A to B. And then B will make an assessment. If he agrees, then A can send that to that. Only if B agrees. If B agrees, then only he can send that consignment to country B. So hence it is referred as prior informed consent procedure. So whatever he is disseminating, whatever he is transporting, whatever waste he is sending, whatever products he is selling, he has to take a permission from country B where he is sending. And we refer that as Rotterdam Convention. It is administered by FAO and UNEP. It entered into force on 24th February 2004, and it has Annex 3, which includes pesticides and industrial chemicals that have been banned or severely restricted. So, facts you should remember. Is it clear? So, it is prior, before you are sending, you should take a consent and permission from the country where you are trading, where you are sending. Right. Then previous year's questions which were asked. The Environment Protection Act of 1986 empowers Government of India. That is the first one. The state, the requirement of public participation in the process of environment protection, in the process of environment protection and procedure, and the manner in which it is sought, lays down the standards for emission or discharge of environmental pollution from the various sources. Which is correct in this? Anybody, can you try? Which is correct in this? States the requirement of public participation and all. Right. So here it never talks about public participation. So only two is correct. It never forces on the public participation. So option B is correct here. It never forces. Then consider the following: carbon monoxide, methane, ozone, sulfur. Which among them are released in the atmosphere due to crop biomass? So during crop biomass, we use fertilizers in the agricultural fields, which accumulate there secondary pollutants. So these primary pollutants, they react and they create secondary pollutants also. Secondary also, right? So they react with each other and create secondary pollutants like ozone, methane, etc. Right? So hence it includes all the pollutants. It includes all that 1, 2, 3, 4. So primary as well as secondary, all are included in that. Then consider the following: agriculture soils release nitrogen oxides in the environment, cattle releases ammonia into environment, poultry industries releases reactive nitrogen compounds in the environment. Agriculture releases nitrogen, yes, when we say fertilizers, NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus and potash, so they will add. And cattle releases ammonia. Right? So ammonia is also released there. More ammonias are released as a byproduct or the feeder part. Right? Then poultry industries releases active nitrogen compounds. The feed which is there, which is engulfed by the poultry part, which are fed to them, and also the waste which are generated by them, generally they are in the form of nitrogen compounds. They undergo chemical reactions and they create secondary type of compound. So here all the three are there. Which of the following are the key features of National Ganga River Basin Authority? This was asked before that. River Basin is the unit plan of planning and management. It spearheads the river conservation efforts at national level. One of the chief minister of the state through which Ganga flows becomes chairman of NGRBA. Now, when we talk about authority, and many states are there, so the chief ministers can be members, but not the chairmen. The chief ministers can be members. Now, who will be the chairman of that? Who will be the chairman of this National Ganga River Basin Authority? Who will be the chairman of that? Perfect. Prime Minister will be chairman of that. PM will be chairman of that. Is it clear? So here you can remove that three aspects. Sometimes you may find this, sometimes you don't have any elimination aspect. Right? In the cities of our country, which among the following are used to have AQI? AQI consists of 8 pollutants. Please fix that in your mind. 8 pollutants. And if you remember these, then you can mark such questions. So here we don't have carbon dioxide. We have carbon monoxide. We have nitrogen dioxide. We have sulfur dioxide. Right? We don't have methane. We don't have methane. Is it clear? So this is how you have to keep this in the mind. Then acid rain is caused by pollution of environment by acid rain. Very simple one. It is the pollution of nitrous oxide and sulfur dioxide. Easy for you to write. Biological oxygen demand. Biological oxygen demand is a standard of criterion for fast. Biological oxygen demand. If it is, if BOD is more, then the water is more polluted. Perfect. Perfect. Which of the following are the reasons for exposure to benzene? So this is very difficult. So such difficult questions will be there. It's a chance factor. Such difficult questions will be there. So somebody say that yes, you can go with the data, but as a human being, it is very difficult to remember. As a human being, it is very difficult to remember that. Even though I have given in the initial slide, but it is not that easy to remember such. So such questions you can leave if you are having any doubts, and if you are having 100% correct data, then you can answer such questions. So here it is all the four, 1 2 3 4 and 5, all the 5 can be the answer for that. Yes, not even the chemistry person can answer that. Those who are having PhD also, they can't answer that. Perfect. Right, these are the practice questions. Please try to write answer for them. Try to write answer for them. Right, now next we move on to forest. 15 minutes we will discuss this, and then 15 minutes I'll take up the PYQ questions. So whatever 15 minutes are there, this 15 minutes we'll discuss, and the remaining portions of forest and other topics, I'll be merging them and I'll take on one Saturday. And somebody of you requested for that river linking project also. So if possible, I'll take river linking project also on one Saturday. So not this coming Saturday, I'll take up on one Saturday. So we'll club them, right? So there was some misunderstanding was there with the classes, and also I kept with some phase. So one Saturday I'll take up and we'll complete that part also. Not this Saturday, some other Saturday we'll take 3 or 4 hours of class, and in that few more PYQ we'll discuss. So here I'll discuss some, and there I'll discuss few more PYQs. So 15 minutes will 15 to 20 minutes will discuss, and remaining 15 minutes I'll take on discussing PYQ. E flow means it is environmental flow. E flow means environmental flow. Environment flow. It means it is the minimum amount of the water which has to flow in the river. Flow in the river, because river is an ecosystem. River is an ecosystem, and it has to maintain the health of ecosystem, and hence every river has to maintain that flow. See, when you are having any type of the doubts are there, you can drop a mail. If time permits, you can drop a mail, taking the mail ID from the SMEs. You can drop a mail if it is feasible and very important one, then I'll revert it back. Yeah, carrying capacity of river has to be maintained. Now, when you talk about the forests, remember all the forests are classified on the basis of the canopy density of trees. Density of trees. We refer them as canopy. Canopy, density of trees. Right. So here, if any land, if it is having the density or canopy density more than 70%, and above, then we refer that as very dense forest. And if it is 40 to 70% of the canopy, then we refer that as moderately dense forest. And if it is 10% to 40%, then we refer that as open forest. And if forest land with the canopy density of less than 10%, we refer that as scrub. Less than 10% of that area, right? So here less than 10% means you have to have a unit. So unit here we use generally is 1 hectare. 1 hectare. So in 1 hectare, in 1 hectare unit, 1 hectare unit, canopy means the density of trees in 1 hectare unit. In 1 hectare, if 10% of that 1 hectare is having the trees, we refer that as scrubs. If 40% of that is having trees, open forest. Canopy means the trees, the density of the trees, tree canopy. Leaves, the trees, we refer that as canopy. Right. Now, if you take the factual data, on the earth, tropical forests are dominant, which is around 45%. Rainforest, tropical rainforest, Amazon rainforest. Then boreal forest, we refer them as taiga or coniferous, which are then we are having the data of temperate deciduous, etc., which are found in these areas. Temperate deciduous, which are found. Then subtropical areas, that is the region between 25 to 30 or tropics to 30 degrees, subtropical areas. So this region, subtropical areas. So the maximum is tropical rainforest, followed by boreal, followed by temperate, and followed. This is global, not India. This is global forest. Global forest. Right. Then country wise, country wise, country wise, if you take the forest with its geographical area, forests with its geographical area, right, and total forest, total forest. Now, if you take the total forest wise, the area wise highest is in Russia. Area wise, it is highest in Russia. Then second is in Brazil. Third one is in Canada. So this is area wise. This is area wise, total forest area wise. Now try to find an answer for forest with country's geographical area where it is very high. Please understand this. Every country will have their geographical areas, and these geographical areas will be having forest. So percentage of forest with land area, we refer that as the forest per area there, right? So it is percentage of forest in the land of that country, and this is total forest. So total forest is highest in Russia, Brazil. Now, in which country the percentage of forest is more? I'm talking about major countries, right? Perfect. It is Brazil. It is Brazil. Brazil. So you should be very careful in your answers. You will be very careful in your answers. So Brazil has 60% of Amazon forest is in that area only. So country wise, the largest percentage is in Brazil. Area wise means it is about the Russia. Yeah, on density basis, you can say on density basis. Rather than density, you can say percentage wise. See, if a country is having 100% as area, so what percentage of that area is covered with forest? What percentage of that area is covered with forest? Now, in case of Brazil, the percentage of forest is more compared to all other countries' percentage. Right? Land utilization. In geography, you have studied something called as land utilization. Proportion wise, perfect. Right. Now, deforestation and forest degradation. Now, when you talk about such data, you should remember that. You should remember two conditions. 1960 was there. So before 1960, large amount of deforestation was in the temperate areas, that is out of tropic. Before 1960, large amount of deforestation was out of tropical area, right? So before 1960, large amount of deforestation was in this areas, out of tropics. But after 1960, Large amount of deforestation is in the tropical area. Large amount of deforestation is seen in the tropical area. In the tropical area, right? And here you should remember, deforestation is completely cutting up of the trees. Forest degradation, I told you, land degradation. Land degradation means where the productivity decreases, the services which are provided by that decreases. So forest degradation also means that the services or the benefits what we get from the forest decreases. So the services or the benefit what we get from the forest decreases, or we say it is where the benefits what we get are completely very less. The benefits are completely very less there, right? So we refer them as degraded forests. Degraded forests. Now what benefits you get from the forest? Degradation means what benefits you get from the forest. Oxygen what you get decreases, the fruits what you get decreases, the fodder what you get decreases, right? The fodder what you get decreases, then the timber what you get decreases. So all these are referred as the services or the products. All these, when they decrease, then we refer that as forest degradation. So it means that forest is unable to provide the services which it can provide when it is in the healthy state. So deforestation means completely cutting up of forest, and forest degradation means where its productivity are decreased. So please remember the terms, right? So if you take that, forest degradation means when the forest ecosystem loses its capacity to provide important goods and services to human beings. So this is called as forest degradation. This is called as forest degradation. And this is called as cutting up of trees. We refer that as deforestation. Right. So remember these two terms. It is something like deforestation means a dead person, dead thing, and degradation means sick person, bimar admi. Bimar admi. Degradation means a sick person, bimar admi. So a sick person cannot perform all his services, right? So sick person or bimar admi, he cannot do all the duties which are there. So degraded are sick one which cannot provide the benefits, and deforestation means a completely a dead person. So dead person and sick person. Is it clear? Okay. Now, what are the causes of deforestation in world and in India? One is subsistence. Sorry, subsistence means you are growing only traditional methods. Subsistence means traditional method. Traditional methods. And you are growing the food for your own consumption. Shifting cultivation is also called as slash and burn. Shifting cultivation is also called as slash and burn. Right. So selecting the site generally in the forest areas, then you will slash that, you will cut that, then you will burn that, then you do the cultivation for 1 year 2 year, harvest that, then you abandon the field and you move on to the next area. So we refer that as shifting cultivation. Then commercial one, like what you have seen in the context of Indonesia, palm oil cultivation, Indonesia and many other countries. Example is palm oil cultivation, or sometimes coffee cultivation, rubber cultivation, where we have to reduce the forest regions there. Then livestock like Brazil, where we find grazing. In India, transhumance activities, overgrazing, which may have an impact. Then these are the names, the shifting cultivation in India, the names in the areas. Sometimes they may ask in the prelims. In northeastern side, more specifically in Assam, we refer that as Zoom. This is in Bundelkhand. In Madhya Pradesh, this is Deepa. Andhra Pradesh, it is Podu. Sometimes they may ask in match the following. Match the following. Yeah, soya bean cultivation in Amazon forest, Brazil, where it is one of the reason for that. Right. So these are the names given to the shifting cultivation in India, and these are the names which are given in different countries. Names in different countries. Right. Sometimes they may ask in match the following. Like in Thailand, it is called as Tamarai. Indonesia, it is called as Ladang. In Mexico, Comeli. Yucatan, Milfa. Madagascar, it is Tavi. So these are the names which are given to the forests in different countries. Sorry, shifting cultivation in different countries. In different countries, right? Then construction and urbanization, large amount of area where we do the construction activities. Construction activities means you are constructing that for many projects. You are constructing for roads, etc. Urbanization means where we are making large amount of settlements, resorts, hotels, etc., which are done without impact or environment impact assessment. Then illegal logging, cutting the forest for timber. Natural factors, if you see, it is earthquake, volcano, forest fire, droughts, etc., etc. We refer them as the natural factors. We refer them as natural factors, right? So these are something where the forests are seen. Now here we come across two terms: reducing emission from deforestation and forest degradation. Generally, we refer them as REED and REED plus. Now here you should remember a very simple aspect. Forests are referred as the carbon sink. Carbon sink. And forests are also, which are very important, which controls the soil erosion. Which control soil erosion. Controls the soil erosion. And forests are also which provides many benefits to the local people. Benefits to the local people. So forests are very, very important. Carbon sinks and all, right? So this is something which you have to be taken into consideration. Forest benefits are there, sinks are there. Now these benefits are done only when the forest is in good condition. Only when the forest is in good condition. Good condition. Now if the forest is degraded or deforested, if the forest is degraded means maybe because of drought, maybe because of forest fires, etc. Degraded means when it is productivity is reduced, or deforestation. That means when you cut that. So whenever degraded and deforestation is there, so degraded and deforestation, the moment when it is done, so whatever stored carbon is there, it is released back to the atmosphere. Whatever stored carbon dioxide is there, because it is referred as carbon sink, it releases back to the atmosphere. It releases back. Then the degraded forests or deforested areas, rather than carbon sink, they become carbon emitter. They become carbon emitter. So in this regard, it is very important to protect, conserve, and restrict or restore the forest. So hence, it is very important to protect, conserve, and restore the degraded forest. Restore the degraded forest. Protect, conserve, and restore the degraded forest. And also, wherever deforestation is done, you have to make afforestation. You have to make Afforestation. Afforestation. Right. So by doing this, by doing these, by protecting, conserving, and restoring the forest and planting that, so we will reduce the emission of carbon dioxide, or we will increase the absorption. So by this the forest areas will maintain its characteristic or the work of carbon sink, so they will be kept as a carbon sink only. So they will absorb the carbon dioxide, and it will stop re-emission of carbon dioxide which is stored in them. Stop re-emission of carbon dioxide which is stored in these plants. So that is where the international authorities, they decided that we have to start something program called as read and read plus. Is it clear now? Read and read plus. Now what is difference between read and read plus? So we come across many countries, right? So in these countries agriculture is not their main occupation, so their main occupation depends on timbers, cutting up of timbers, which provides them livelihood, right? Their economic activity, their food, their all depends on livelihood, Now if you ask these countries that, see, we are experiencing global warming, we are experiencing climate change, so please stop cutting up of the trees in your areas, so do you think that they will stop cutting the trees? They say that, I can agree to you, your point, what you say is correct, but if I stop doing that, I'll have a problem of my livelihood. How I will survive to that? Then they thought that, why don't we provide them financial assistance to protect and conserve that? So Reed talks about only protecting and conserve without the financial assistance. So then they decided that we have to provide the financial assistance to that. You provide them financial assistance, you provide sustainable development of that area, so you give them money for planting the trees rather than cutting the trees. You give them money to restore the forests rather than cutting the forests. So this plus point in the read is to provide them financial assistance for sustainable development and making the trees, making the forest to make all their services to benefit. We refer that as read plus. So read and read plus. The definition is reducing emission from the forest, mitigate climate change from forest by better forest management, particularly in the developing countries. Read plus means sustainable management, conservation, and enhancing carbon stock, and you are providing incentives, paisa, for their livelihood. Incentives, it means providing them monetary benefits, then only it can become more successful. So we refer that as read plus. Is it clear? And remember, this read plus is implemented by these two organization. United Nations read plus program is implemented by these: FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, plus United Nations Development Program, plus United Nations Environment Program, where the read plus is implemented. Is it clear? So this is what we talk about, the read and read perspectives, right? These are the 5 benefits of read plus, that is reducing the emission from deforestation, reducing degradation, converting them into sinks, enhance forest carbon sink, sustainable management of the forest. How carbon dioxide is released back the dead trees? So when the dead trees are burnt, they release back. So when you burn that, the smoke is itself in the form of carbon dioxide. The smoke itself is in the form of carbon dioxide. So remaining discussions we will take up next week, sorry, the Saturday and Sunday. So here forest fires, Kampa and all are there. So small topics are there. Don't worry, one Saturday I'll complete all those small topics are there. We'll take up there. If you are having any queries, you can raise me on that Saturday. Right. Okay. Now, sometimes when you talk about the questions which were asked in UPSC, this is where the questions are asked. The first one is, describe the major outcomes of the 26th session of Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. What was the commitments made by India in its conference? So EIA, don't worry, Kishan, I'll make it very simple. It will take hardly half an hour. Don't worry, it will take hardly half an hour. So I'll discuss EIA, Environment Impact Assessment of 2006, and how the changes have been done. I'll make it very simple. Don't get much stressed. I'll explain that in a very simplified words. It will take hardly 30 to 40 minutes. Don't get much stress. And that is for your mains. Don't get stressed. Maybe just wait for a week. So next weekend, I'll complete that. Don't get. So EIA is a chunk, but it is very small chapter. It is very simple to be understood. Right. So here, when you are making an approach in answering that, so you should always provide the introduction. You should always provide the introduction to this. Now, introduction to this is, you have to understand here the terms are associated with one. One is, you should explain what is climate change. You should explain what is climate change. So climate change means you have to talk that the present Earth is facing three major problems: climate change, biodiversity, and land degradation. This is how you have to put your introduction. Earth is having three major problems, that is climate change, loss of biodiversity, and land degradation. Among them, climate change is considered as one of the major part, and hence many geographers, many environmentalists say that it is not climate change. They are referring it as a climate crisis. So we are referring that as a climate crisis, which in turn is affecting all the issues, a vicious cycle which has been formed. Now, how to define the climate change? As I told in the introduction, when you make a statistical data of the elements of climatology like temperature, rainfall, all these, when you record them for a longer period of a time, then we refer that as a climate. So first you should mention all these statistical data, when we take them for a longer period of a time, when you calculate them for a long period of a time, say 20 years, 30 years, etc., we refer that as climate. And when there is a change of this, we refer that as climate change. Now you should be very clear that you are not writing any definition on global warming. You are mentioning what is climate change. Then next is something about UNFCCC. Now you have to talk about, to tackle this situation, in the Earth Summit of 1992, three conventions were signed. And out of that three convention, one convention was associated with climate change. We refer that as United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. You are given a flow. And the countries which are signed to that, they are referred as the signatories. And it created a conference of parties. And these conference of parties, they meet every year to find a solution for climate change, or to address the needs, So you are given something called as basics and this. Now they are talking about 26th. Now, where the 26th conference was held? Now the 26th conference, which is referred as Conference of Parties, was held in Glasgow. After that, COVID, and this was Glasgow in the year 2021. So this is how you have to educate the evaluator. Thus, I know everything, man. Summary will express everything. So you are given a proper introduction. Now, once you are given this, you are completely explained him. Then he asks about major outcomes of that. So major outcomes, when we say, you can put them in any formats, you can put them in many formats. So here they talked about phasing down and phasing out of fossil fuels. It settled the carbon trade. Unsold carbon credits were settled in this. When you refer that slide, you will get a complete idea about that. It also talks about where the rule book was framed. Rule book was to implement Paris Agreement. So finalization of rule book was done to implement Paris Agreement. Right? So it initiated the discussion on at least loss and damage fund. So a dialogue was created for loss and damage fund. So all these important points you should mention. Methane pledge was done. Methane pledge was done. So all major points you should mention. Then apart from that, this is half work. It talks about what are the commitments made by India in the conference. Now the commitments which were made by India, it is referred as Panchamrit, 5 things: renewable energy, intensities, carbon sinks. Very simple to remember. Panchamrit. So you add one below the other, all the Panchamrits which were of India. So you are made introduction, you are given the main body. Then next one is conclusion. So in the conclusion, so this will add more than 200 words. In the conclusion, yes, new NDCs were added. You can add that also. I'm just giving you a flow. You can add new NDCs were given. Perfect. You can add them. Now the conclusion you have to write with your basic common sense and all. So this conference is something which is very important, where we are moving from Kyoto Protocol to Paris Agreement, where the rule book has been framed out. And it has also created a gap which was seen in the context of carbon credit. So it is hopefully will settle up the issues of carbon trade as well. It will settle up the carbon trade as well. And these conventions, if they are properly implemented with all the proper measures which are there, then we can make sure that whatever the Paris Agreement we have taken, that is to reach the goal of Paris Agreement, not beyond 2 degrees, if possible 1.5 degree, can be done only when we take up seriously not only the findings, implementation of the conference of parties. That's it. Don't write in detail. More than sufficient. That's how you have to write your answers. Is it clear? This is one question. Then second, when you talk about the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has predicted the global sea level rise about 1 meter by 2100. Now, what would be its impact in India and all? Now, when you are writing such aspects, first you should give an introduction about IPCC. What is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change? Brief about that. Not in detail, brief about that, where it was created, science-based data and all. It always gives assessment reports and special reports. It always gives assessment reports and special reports. And you should give some brief introduction about that. Right? Then next very small impact is the sea level rise. Now, when you talk about that, climate change and sea level. Now, what are the reasons for sea level in the context of climate change? One is that when the temperature increases, then the water expands. And the second reason is melting of the glacier. So because of these two reasons, the sea level will increase. You have to give it very refined one. Your answer should be unique. Then the evaluator will understand. Right? So you are given this. No. Do we have all the coastlines of the regions? If we take Indian coastlines and all the island countries, do we find the coastlines of all the countries, are they uniformly at the same heights? Do you find all are in the same heights? If you take the coastlines of all the coastlines, will they be in the same height? No. So hence you should mention that the impact of sea level varies from country to country. So impact of sea level, it varies from region to region. So you are giving some idea, you are educating him that sea level is not same. If you take some areas which are less in the height, the water intrusion will be more. If you take small islands like Seychelles, take Maldives, so the impact of that will be very high. So sea level varies from region to region. So it means that the low level countries, small island countries, they will be affected more. Take an example of Maldives, right? So they will be affected more due to their low level and the regional approaches. Right, so this is what you should do. Even in the case of Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats also, they are not same, right? So in the Western Ghats they are having steep, and the Eastern Ghats we find them, they are having the shallow water bodies are, so they're not the same, right? So if you take the city wise India also, we find the submergence of Kolkata will be very faster than that of Mumbai. Why? Because Kolkata is at very low level. The submergence of Kolkata is faster than that of Mumbai. Why? Because the sea level, if you take the Kolkata, it is very close to the sea level, so the more floods will enter into Kolkata rather than taking that of Mumbai. So that basic thing you should keep in the mind, right? So it varies from one region to another region, right? One region to another region. Now next is that what is the effect, what would be the impact. Now when you write about the impact, so the impacts when you are writing, so the impacts of that are, you can add many impacts. It will create coastal erosion, it will create coastal submergence, it will create loss of biodiversity, loss of biodiversity. And this loss of biodiversity can also make many species like elephants and all, which are staying in that area, leopards, cheetahs, which are staying in that area, they will leave their place and enter into human areas, which can lead to man animal conflict, which can lead to man animal conflict, which can lead to migration of people, which can affect the deltas, which are productive lands in the coastal areas, right? It will affect the ports, it will affect the ports. Socioeconomic impacts will be there, and the cyclones will become very severe. The height of the water will be more, the cyclones will be very severe, the height of the water will be more, right? So it will create many such issues, food security, etc. Food security, etc., right? So all these you should mention, but the introduction is very key term. This introduction will fetch you more marks than what. So everybody will write a content, the introduction what you write is having a weightage, so this itself explains that yes, you are perfect about your thoughts and policies, right? So all these you can, yes, deltas which are nearby like Bay of Bengal and all will be there, right? So it will all have an impact. It can damage infrastructure, damages will be there. So all these points you should mention there, right? So all this is very important when you are hiking, right? So this is what you should talk about that. So it is impact on the Indian Ocean region. So you're given an introduction, then you are given these. Now next is, as the impact is very severe, way forward, as the impact is very severe, so we always have the issues with the biodiversity loss. So hence it is very important to restore and conserve them, and that's why we are having many programs there. So can you name any program, by which we can reduce the impact of the sea level rises which are there? Any program by which you can reduce the impact of that? Any program like mangroves alliance for climate, mangroves for future, increasing the mangroves as bioshields, right? Then disaster management, remember disaster management, creating embankments, risk awareness, that is pre-disaster management, early warning system, MISTI, etc. So by doing this, can you reduce the impact of the sea level on the coastal communities? By you can't stop that. You can't stop that. Can you reduce the impact of that on the coastal communities? Yes, all those you can meet. And apart from that, you should mention that Project Monsoon. Apart from that, you can say all the countries should switch as far as possible from fossil fuels to the clean energy, so that the Paris Agreement is done in a systematic way and the impact of climate change are done. So you have to talk on adaptation and mitigation. Adaptation, mitigation. Use the words appropriately. And then what about LND? What about LND? So you have to make proper adaptation and mitigation. If not, then loss and damage is there. And that is where you have to talk about COP28, which says that yes, we have agreed for loss and damage funds also. So all these will reduce the impact of sea level in the coastal communities. This is way forward. This is way forward, right? So you should club all the things and then you should write an answer, right? This is what you have to remember. Now, climate change is a global, how India is affected. Now, here you should remember when you are writing in this definition of climate change, then IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, where it has given its fourth assessment report, where it has said the tropical countries will be affected by the impact of climate change. Tropical countries will be affected by impact of climate change. Then you have to mention about that characteristics, tropical countries and how they are affected, right? So you should explain that part. IPCC's fourth assessment. Now how India will be affected in that, right? So there you should talk about India's coastline, you should talk about India's population. That's what I told you in the initial part. And and you should give brief idea about how it is affecting Himalayan ecosystem. Himalayan ecosystem means it is creating in the Himalayas like gulfs, it is creating the forest fires in the Himalayas, melting of the glacier, and this melting will add floods in the lowland areas, cloud burstings, and all you should mention. Now in this context, apart from all the policies, you have to remember something which is called as the National Action Plan on Climate Change. And in the National Action Plan on Climate Change, we are having a separate one for Himalayas and for coastal areas. Himalayas and coastal areas. So by that, you can write very good answers in this perspectives. It's about skill. It's about representing yourself in UPSC formats. It's not about accumulating all in one. It is about representing. See, when you visit a five-star hotel, he will also give you idli, and normal hotel will also give you an idli. But why you pay more in five-star? Because the way in which he has represented the idli, which is made in the five-star hotel, is also made up of rice, and here also it is rice. You can bargain here, there you can't bargain. You have to give what he demands. So your answer should be like five-star hotel recipes, where you don't have to bargain. You have to demand that the evaluator has to give you the marks, and this can be done only when you increase your quality of language and quality of words. Increase your quality of language and quality of your words, and this is only when you do the proper practice of writing your answers. Proper introduction should be there, main body should be there, and the conclusion is an innovation which you should add continuously, right? In the same way, we have something called as National Wetland Conservation Program. So when you're attempting such questions, you should define wetland. What is wetland? Any land area which is saturated with the water. Then what is Ramsar wetland? Not deeper than 6 meters, not deeper than 6 meters, right? This you should mention. Then what is with context of India? In the context of India, more than 7 lakh wetlands are there. Out of these we are having 80 Ramsar wetlands, and out of these 80, 2 are in the Montreux record. 2 are in the Montreux record. 2 are in the Montreux record. Now, Indian wetlands, what are the major issues? Illegal encroachment, pollution, all these you should mention. You should give some idea that what are the major problems with India's wetland. Right? Mention them. You mention them. Then again, wetland conservation program. So this National Wetland Conservation Program It was started in the year 1986. Then we have National Lake Conservation Program. And then I told you that both were merged in the year 2013, which created National Aquatic Conservation Program. So this you should elaborate. Then you should mention something about National Rules, Wetland Rules of 2017. Wetland Rules of 2017. Right. So this is how you have to maintain the flow. Then any two Ramsar wetlands you can mention. Any two Ramsar wetlands you can mention. But when you are mentioning them, draw them in the map. In the map, if you put, it will be a valid advantage for him to give you good marks there. So it's about your skill and representing them in the context of your answer writing capacities, right? So you make innovations, you write as much as possible, then your answers will be wonderful for the evaluator. It should catch the eyes of evaluator, then only he will give more marks. It's not about filling all with the content, it's not about filling all with the content, it's about segregating them so that the evaluator will feel more interested and pleased to give you the marks here. Is it clear? Impact of climate change on India. Climate change has already started to affect in India. Yes, yes, it has that. You can mention this. Perfect one. Perfect one. Impact of climate change. You can mention that the rainfall patterns, all these. So which I told you in the initial stage, and add up all these, food security and all. You put them point wise. It's a valid one. Perfect one. Atish, perfect one. You can add them. So it is an innovation of writing the capacities and all, right? Sirpur wetland, anything which you can mention them, right? So this is something about the PYQs which were asked in the examination and all. So few more I'll discuss, few more questions I'll discuss when I complete environment impact assessment and all. Don't get much stressed. My advice is that if you talk about any greatest kings of India, Ashoka is the greatest king, Akbar is greatest king. Why? Because of their consolidation capacity. So whatever you read, you should consolidate that. And the consolidation can be done only when you make a proper revision and proper pattern of holding what you have read, digesting what you have read. It's not about reading the territories. In history, we come across Muhammad bin Tughlaq. He is not called as greatest king, even though he is having the largest territory. He had the largest territory, but he is not called as the greatest king. Why? Because the area he was conquering, but on the south he was losing, where the Vijayanagara Empire entered into prominence. So if you are reading 10 new topics and if you are losing 5 topics, then what is the point in reading that extra 10 topics when you are unable to consolidate the 7 and 10? So here it is about consolidation, what you have read. So it is about digesting what you have reading. So UPSC is something about not only extra reading, it's about digesting what you read. So please remember that they are having their policies. If you say Akbar, Akbar consolidated by using Dinelai, and if you take Asoka consolidated by Dhamma policy. So it means they were the instruments by which they consolidated. So you also develop an instrument either by flowchart or by mind map or by some methodology, and try to consolidate what you have read. Consolidation is very, very important. Digesting is very, very important. If you don't digest, if you don't consolidate, whatever you are reading, new topics will go for toss. You will get frustration in your preparation. So consolidation is very, very important. Don't leave the revision in the context of your preparation. So please keep this in the mind. Consolidation is very, very important. Please remember that. Then you have to accept when faults are there. The moment when we accept our faults, the growth begins. When we accept the faults, growth begins. So whenever when you find that, we have to accept and growth begins, that right, that is done. Third one is you should be like ponds and lakes, which should accept like bowing the heads. You should not be like mountains with full of egos. You should not be like mountain with full of egos. When heavy rainfalls are there, the rains and all waters are accumulated in the ponds and lakes, not in the mountains. So we should be like ponds and lakes, bowing the heads and accepting good things. Whether you are getting from any faculty, from any source, any textbooks, any news, any magazine, accumulate that. Accumulate that for your examination. It's not Basavaraj who is giving. You may get it from NCRT book. You may get it from anything, from any source you accumulate. Like it may be for collection of water from rainfall, melting of glacier, any area wherever you get, you accumulate that, and that accumulation will have a jewel which can help you in your preparation. And last word is you should always improve the quality of word and quality of your language, quality of word and quality of your language in the context of your answer writing capacities. So by this we can end the today's session. It's not the last meeting, we'll ending up the today's session. So one Saturday we'll meet up and we will discuss the remaining points, and hopefully we will cover few more PYQs in that session. So till then, revise, keep the things in the mind, write answers as much as possible, and if anywhere where I missed, apologies for that. We'll meet up for again on Saturday. Until then, take care and bye bye.